What we do mean to suggest, though, to the Commission is that you were overall commander in name only. You did not know that the plan had changed fundamentally to channel the protesters into an inevitable and deadly confrontation with the TRT. You don't know what happened at scene 1. You don't know what happened at scene 2. When you were up in the helicopter, it appears you didn't have an appreciation for what had happened because you were flying around in circles. And then it only comes much later that you heard through other people, and that you don't know, with respect to briefing, whether the unit commanders properly briefed all of their members on what was happening. And the reason all of that is important is because this Commission needs to understand who was in charge on the day. And it appears from your evidence that we still don't know that. So
Chair, with respect,
we also need to understand, I need to finish my
the
statement, Chair.
I apologize, Chair.
Major General, it also then means that in terms of assisting this Commission after the fact and trying to establish what happened, your evidence has not been able to assist the Commission yet. And we know that there will be other people who will come and testify, and we hope that their testimony will assist the Commission. But that is all that the South African Human Rights Commission is submitting. And I just wanted to clarify that for you. So there were many interventions over the last 2 days on our cross-examination saying, you know, what is the point of this? This is a question for a different witness. The Major General won't know the answer. And that's precisely the point, that although you were overall commander, you don't seem to have had personal knowledge of what happened. So I don't mean to suggest that you haven't assisted the Commission by being uncooperative. All we say is that you didn't have personal knowledge despite being overall commander.
Ubeka ngolhlobo ke umama Runje ngoba ibekeka indlela ende nje kodwa uthi ke bebangaqondanga okokuba ugeneral wenza ngabomo okokuba afune ukubambisana nabo uthi ubungqina bakhe nje obungancedi nganto.
That's the statement of the attitude of the Human Rights Commission, something they'll elaborate on in argument. I take it's not part of the cross-examination, but Mr. Ngulwana, we will hear it being perhaps developed subsequently in cross-examination and even in argument later, but I don't think it's part of the cross-examination as such. Mr. Ngulwana, did you want to say something?
Yes, Chair, very briefly. We take strong exception to the statement that has just been made by our learned friend. First, she premises her, well, I'll call it address, not to put it higher than that. She premises it by referring to the presence of the media. Clearly, that sets the scene for everything that she says thereafter. She then says, without any proof.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there. I did not understand her to be grandstanding, which I think is what you're insinuating. My understanding was she said there'd been an inaccurate report in the media, inaccurate reports in the media, and she mentioned the fact that she appreciates the fact the media are here now. What she said was being televised, therefore inaccurate reports would be put right. I think that was the thrust of what she said.
Correct.
But anyway, but please carry on with what you have to say, Mr. Ngulwana.
Uthi uyiva ngalhlobo ukuba uyaxolisa wenzela nokuba njengoba ithetha kukhona intatheli nje ukuba iveze lento kokuba iyalungiswa lengxaki eyabakhona lentetho evele ngendlela engeyiyo.
Having referred to the evidence, to the presence of the media, she then mischaracterizes the evidence. She says we don't know who is in charge or who was in charge. There has been ample evidence. It has been put to the general that the person who was in charge was the provincial commissioner. He denied it consistently. There is also reference to, she says, the evidence of the general hasn't assisted this commission. She has absolutely no basis for saying this. It is nothing more than grandstanding, Chair. I persist in that statement. We take strong exception to what
Beka ngolhlobo umthekazi uNgalwana okokuba yonke lento ithetho nje afuna ukuyiveza kwintatheli ngoba buye bacaca ubungqina bukageneral ukuba nguye wayephethe phaya xa kuthiwa yayiphethe ngu-provincial commissioner le nto ucacise kaninzi.
Yes, yes. Mr. Rue, I don't think it's, I don't propose to respond in any length to what you said, but I don't think it's appropriate to suggest the witness's evidence was unhelpful in the course of his speech in the middle of his cross-examination. If you are going to contend that at the end of the day, you're entitled to do so. You're entitled to advance your arguments as to why you say that. But to make a statement like that in the middle of his evidence, I understand the context in which it arose, but still to make a statement like that is not appropriate circumstances. And the evidence wasn't quoted with entire accuracy. I think I understand the point that you...
Just recording, Chairperson.
I think I know the point you are proposing to make. It can be appropriately made at the end if you have evidence to support it. But at the moment, you can't, on the available evidence, make the statement that you did. It may be that you will elicit further evidence from this witness and others, which has a bearing on the point. It may be that at the end of the day you're about to argue the point, but it's certainly not a statement that can be made as a fact at this point. And I don't think it's a tendency which I should encourage for people to make speeches here. This is a place for evidence, examination in chief, cross-examination, re-examination, and answers by witnesses. And the fewer speeches we have, the better. But let's now carry on.
Uchaza umhlekazi okokuba kanawuvumela intetho enjengalena okokuba kwenziwe ispeech apha uvunyelwa okokuba abuzwe imibuzo iphendule imibuzo kungabikho ingxelo nje ezivelayo ezingenasihlahla.
Major General, could I ask you to turn to an exhibit G25? It's a document entitled Crowd Management for Platoon Commanders Briefing and Debriefing.
G325.
It's not a document that had been on our index, but it does provide the answer to Commissioner Hemraj's question regarding the policy around debriefing. Do you have access to exhibit G25?
Correct, Chairperson.
Uthi ugeneral unayo lo klepo?
Major General, for the record, this comes from the POP file, and I understand this to be a policy document by the SAPS around briefing and debriefing for platoon commanders. Is that your understanding of this document?
Vela kwi-POP olukhombisa okokuba indlela ekusetyenzwa ngayo ngeyiphi imithetho.
Chairperson, I may request the paragraph in which the question is based so that I can respond.
Major General, we'll get to the specific paragraph. I just wanted to clarify
I
this.
think that's a fair question. It's
paragraph 12.
This is a document apparently been in existence since 1999. So it's a SAPS document.
It's paragraph.
It's for crowd management for platoon commanders, briefing and debriefing. Are you familiar with this document? Have you seen it before at some stage since 1999 when it came out?
Uthi into oyabhala ngo-1999 le uyabuza ugeneral ukuba uke wadibana nalona walifunda.
Chairperson, precisely my question, this one that I have is similar as FF1, triple F1, is not, it doesn't talk about platoon commanders, maybe, because the one that is in my file is this one.
The one we're looking at, which is
Triple
G25, is headed, I tell you what I'll do.
Let's chat ngayo
colleague,
G25.
I'll give you her copy. It's obviously important for the purposes of Mr. LaRue's cross-examination that you have the document before you. It's being shown on the screen now.
Yes,
Ngoba
that's
beyivezwa phaya kwi-screen.
The debriefing section appears to begin on page 6, paragraph 9. I don't know whether you're referring to that or whether there's another passage you want to refer to first, Mr. LaRue.
Chair, the answer to Advocate Hemraj's question is in paragraph 12, I believe, which is now being displayed on the screen. For the record, it states, after every debriefing session, a brief report should be compiled by the, I don't know what those things mean. Perhaps, Major General, you can help us, commander, and filed together with the operation order for the period of 5 years.
Uthi xa sijonga phaya kumhla
I thought the witness answered the question to say that they would announce the date on which the meeting would be held for the formal briefing.
Andithi uphendule lo mbuzo xa esithi kwawuzawunikeza idate apho kuzawuhlangana khona kuthethe ngayo yonke le ntetho ngesahlakalo eso.
Correct, Commissioner. My understanding of this document, though, is it just answers the question as to how is it then recorded, what happens to it. I believe this document explains that after every debriefing session, there should be a brief report compiled and filed together with the operation order. I'm merely trying to provide assistance on that question.
Uthi umbuzo wakhe nje ukuthi yenziwa ngohlobo olunjani ke le nto.
But Mr. Lu, I understood the witness to be saying that the debriefing which they had on the 16th was not the debriefing as envisaged in the standing order. Otherwise, those were just inputs from various commanders of the reports of what had happened, and the debriefing as envisaged in the standing order would be done later, and the date would be announced so that every input would be there. That is where the analysis of the events of the whole operation would be carried out. That's how I understood him.
Ndivebeka ngolo hlobo mna ukuba le ntetho yayenziwa ngaloo mini akusilethethwa phaya kwi-standing order njengoba esitsho nje okokuba bazawudibana apho kubekwe imini apho kuzobekwa yona yonke into kuphindeke kujongisiswe yonke into njengokwenzeka kwayo ngaloo mini.
Commissioner Chikota, that accords with my understanding of the Major General's answer as well. The reason I'm directing him to this document, if I can establish that he's familiar with it, is I want to understand when it talks about every debriefing session, does that only mean that formal debriefing scheduled thereafter, or if it's every debriefing even while the operation is underway?
I'm going to ask him the question in a minute, but before you ask it, he did raise his hand indicating, I think, that he wanted to make some comment. Clarity to the
General.
Correct, Chairperson. Chairperson, the same document, the same question and paragraph, it was asked by Advocate Josie. I explain it extensively.
And
I will again explain it, Chairperson, to say, in terms of that paragraph 12, the debriefing that is being mentioned there is the one that I indicated in my HH3, why it was not held.
Statement HH12 ndisitsho kokuba isizathu sokuba ingabanjwanga ngelo xesha yintoni.
And at that time I did also explain that the section commander and platoon commanders and all is the one that has to be filed in the file of an operation, because each operation, it has a file number.
As a statement, as by the section commander, so as a fagwa kuleo file yenkazel.
This indicates the different debriefing that should have taken place prior the in-depth debriefing by the CJOC. Together all this debriefing, they will be put in that file and it has to stay for 5 years. Then after 5 years, it can be destroyed.
Debriefing ichaza nezi ebezenziwa ngamaxesha lawa kwenzeka esehlakalo.
No, Chairperson.
Hayi Mtekazi.
Chairperson, in the normal course of the operation, I've made an example of a normal on duty to come and report on duty at any police station. When members are reporting on duty, they must come 15 minutes before they stand a parade, they get inspected by the commander. And the commander must check whether they are properly dressed, they've got correct equipment to execute their work, and they are sober. And thereafter, after that has been done, they must be briefed how they are going to do their work, and in terms of and how the tactics in any other matter is done at that parade. That debriefing, it doesn't need any recording, but as I've indicated yesterday, a member must record it in his pocketbook who is a non-commissioned officer. But a commissioned officer, when now the same process that has happened in the morning, it has to happen when they report off duty. Now the officer now, he gets a briefing from the members how they have worked. He has to record it in his diary. That should come, if the operation is bigger as Marikana, from his diary, then he has to give the feedback now to me or to Major General Edendale, who is chairing that meeting of the JOCO.
Chaze kabanzi yapha uGeneral ukuba kusetshenzwa kanjani ngokwesichelo. Polisa nepolisa kufanele lifike imizuzu e15 ngaphambi kokuba kwexesha lempangelo apho uzawudibana khona nekomanda eza kubahlola ibhale yonke into. Bona ke babhala ezo zinto kwi-pocket book zabo, yena kuthi ke emva kwexesha ayibhale kwidayari. Xa kwisehlo esinjika sasemarikana ibhalwa apho ibese inikezwa kubo aba baphethe phaya kwijoko.
Chairperson, with regard to this one, I normally refer it as a SWOT analysis. SWOT maybe is SO. It's where you have to check your strength, your weaknesses, the opportunities, strength and threats. It's totally different. It's at a strategic level, but it has to start with the members. With the members, we indicate what problems did you experience with the radios, what problems did you experience. Then the members, they tell us what problems they experience with all what has happened on that day. How is the feeling of the community? And thereafter, that has now to be taken to the in-depth briefing, which me as a CJOC, I have to hold. And thereafter, after the police have done their debriefing, then you call other role players. In the case of Marikana, we have to call all other role players in the hospitals that we worked with, the people that were, the paramedics that they were in the scenes, the securities that they were there to work with us, all the people. Now they come, and after finalizing those different certificates, they must be recorded in that file and be filed in that file which I've mentioned for 5 years according to that paragraph 12, Chairperson.
Ubenikeza esisifundo ke uGeneral kumama uLeroux okokuba kusetshenzwa kanjani ngesichelo phaya. Nomahluko okhona phakathi kwento eyenzeka ngasesichelweni njengasemsebenzini nesehlakalo esinjengesi semarikana apho kufanele kumbandakanywe bonke umuntu ewathatha inxaxheba kulonto njengoba besebenza apha ne-security nabasezibhedlela nabo bonke kufumane ingxelo zabo nengxaki ebaye badibana nazo ezizawuthi ke zibhale phansi zifakwe kule ncwadi ekugqibeleni ezawubekwa njengoba ivela phaya ihlale iminyaka emihlanu.
Thank you for that explanation, Major General. That's helpful. Major General, I'd like to move on now to what you said. You testified at length this morning about what you heard from about Scene 2 from McIntosh, Naidu, and Kidd. Did any of them report to you that there was a charging mob at Scene 2?
Uyachaza kabanzi namhlanje into owayiva kuMcIntosh Naidu noKidd kukho owaxela okokuba bake bahlasela ngaba abaqhankqalazi kuye kwabakho uhlaselo lenzwa ngabaqhankqalazi.
Chairperson, as I've indicated, is that Captain Kidd said that there was a person who charged at them.
Chaza kokuba uKidd uthi kukho umuntu oweza apha ngakubo esiza ngesandla.
And General Naidu said that there was a person who had a firearm.
General Naidu wanxela ukuba kukho umuntu wayephethe umpu.
And Colonel McIntosh said that the name, if I recall very well, it was Rasta. He was charging at them.
McIntosh wandixela ukuba le ndoda ibizwa ngokuba uRasta uye lo wayebahlasela.
Major General,
So if I can just interrupt, the phrase charging mob appears from some or other document. Did you receive any report whatsoever that there was a charging mob at scene 2? Was that reported to you at all?
Kukho apha kuvela khona okokuba zizihlwele ezizazi hlasela uke wave ingxelo enjengaleyo.
No, Chairperson.
Azange ivezwe kuye.
Major General, you testified about that what Captain Kidd told you, that he heard the gunfire and then moved in response to that. Is that accurate? Was that is that your recollection of what you were told by Captain Kidd? He heard the gunfire and moved towards it.
Weva izithonga zombu Captain Kidd kwabese eya kwelo cala. Kunjalo.
On his way, then he was directed by the chopper.
Ewe njengamazwi akhe kodwa leyo nto eyiva kwichopper.
Major General, I'm just trying to understand. Did he report to you that he got an order from the jock, or that that the chopper sort of said to him, "Go there"? Did he report an order, or that I don't know? The chopper sort of gave him a route on how to get to where the shooting was happening.
Paku ngumyalelo yini kuyi-order ethi makaye apho noma i-chopper yayimxela ukuba yenzeka kweliphi icala loo nto?
He heard a gunfire. As a police officer, he took an initiative to go and check what is happening. On his way to where he heard a gunfire, then the chopper directed him.
Njengoba ndisitsho ke weva imbumbu weva ezithonga ezinjengepolisa ke wabesethatha esiya kwelo cala. Uthe xa esiya apho ichopper kwaba ngiye emxela ukuba yenzeke phi lento.
And Major General, when the chopper was directing him, that was presumably by radio, correct?
Yenzeka lento nge-radio.
I could not precisely say, but the chopper normally, when they direct you, they will fly on top of you, or they will indicate also by means of how you should move. But that precisely, Captain Kidd can shed the light, and as well as Lieutenant Colonel Vermaak.
Colonel Vermaak, Lieutenant Colonel Vermaak no Kidd ngabo bangachaza ukuba yasetshenzwa kanjani ngoba ziningi izindlela. Kwenye babhabha apha phezu kwakho bakuyise kulowo ndawo noma mhlawumbe bakubonise ngenye indlela okokuba iphina leyo.
Major General, could I ask you to pick up Exhibit L and turn to slide 249, please?
Siya ku Exhibit L, slide 249.
For the record, this is a slide in the police presentation with the narrative heading time 16:15. The photograph below shows the positioning of the police units as they converged on Kopi 3 to continue to disarm and arrest the protesters. It then identifies POP, Forward Holding Area 2 with TRT, POP and K9, Forward Holding Area 1, K9, STF, NIU, and NIU aboard the helicopter. Major General, do you have that slide?
Fanekiso ubuzokuba unawo na ugeneral njengoba usitsho phaya ukuba simfanekiso wamapolisa ngendlela beme ngayo phaya kwikopi yesithathu xa kuyothathelwa abacankalazi izixhobo zabo.
Correct, Chairperson. I do have it.
Nayo ewe.
Major General, who was commanding these members at Kopi 3?
Bangubani waye laula lama polisa belapha kukopi yesithathu.
Does your question not need to be more specific because there are various units there?
Uthi umama Hemraj makawucacise ngoba zi-units ezohlukile ngamaqela ohlukile amapolisa la avele kude.
You say who was, you see, it might be who were. Was there one person in overall command of the people we see on this slide? Or would it be more accurate to say that certain units were commanded by one officer and other units were commanded by another officer or other officers?
umbuzo kokuba ngoba ngamaqela ohlukahlukile lawa benekomanda ezohlukile nomnye phethe lakhe icela ikanene kwakho umuntu owaye ongamele yonke lento.
Chairperson, as I've said, Major General Naidu, and in terms of the evidence before the commission, he was posted as a forward holding area 1 commander.
So he's obviously
he's
obviously in command of those people we see referred to in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, the forward holding area 1 people, and some K9 people who were there as well. But was anybody in overall command, any officer, overall command of all the members we see referred to here on the slide, or must we inquire who was in command of some of the other units? You understand the point I'm making?
Correct, Chairperson.
What's the answer?
It will be those that in command of the units. As I've said, that they went there.
Yes, I see. Okay, so the real question should be, Mr. LaRue will allow me to amend it, was who were in command of the members that we see here on the slide. You've told us General Naidu was in charge of the forward holding area 1 people. Who was in charge of the STF people?
Chair, it might assist to look at slides 136 and following of Exhibit L.
I want to know this witness answer. I don't want to know what the slide says. Thank you for the attempt at assisting me. Would you tell me, please, from your own knowledge, who was in command of the STF people there?
Chairperson, as STF is from head office, I remember it will be Colonel or Lieutenant Colonel Gaffley.
Yes. Head office Gaffley.
And the NIU people?
It will be, he was a Lieutenant Colonel, now he's Colonel Mudiba.
Colonel Mudiba, NIU.
And there are 2 boxes headed FHA2, that's the forward holding area 2. Who was the member in charge of those persons?
Is a forward holding area 2.
In command, sorry.
Chairperson, you remember when I spoke about Captain Kit?
Captain Kit.
So he had also members of the TRT. As you remember that Lieutenant Colonel Pizzi, firstly it was Lieutenant Colonel Pizzi, and he was recalled.
Yes, he wasn't available on the fateful day of the 16th. He'd been there earlier. I think he was there on the 15th, wasn't he? But no, he wasn't there on the 16th, is that right?
He was still there, Chairperson.
But where was he?
But Brigadier Fritz called him to go and assist as he is a reserve.
Yes, I see. Yes, thank you.
And
then there's the POP. There's a box with 2 arrows relating to POP. So who was the member in charge of them?
Chairperson, this one of POP, because there is no any other line that was there. Brigadier Fritz, after he moved, after the dispersal in scene 1, he should be the one that who is there. Brigadier Fritz, who is the operational commander of this operation.
Yes, I take it that is the information that you wanted at this point, Mr. LaRue, is that correct?
It's part of it, Chair. So, Major General, as I understand your evidence, as you've recapped now with the Chair, each of the 5 units that converge on Corp 3 have their own commanders. Who was coordinating that?
Chairperson, I've already said that what officers told me of acting on their own initiative when they heard a gunfire. So as a result of that, there was no one who was coordinating that.
Aloo nto ke nomnye wayesesebenza ngokwenza kwakhe kungasekho mntu obalawulayo ngaphezulu.
Major General, in your view, given that you have 5 units and 5 commanders converging on Copy 3, do you think there should have been someone coordinating the 5 units?
Awuyiboni bekuyinto efanele wena General ukuba bekufanele kubekho umuntu ozoba ngaphezulu kwabo bonke aba obayalelayo ukuba benze ntoni?
In terms of what they have told me for having acted on their own initiative, I understood what they have said.
Dayivisisa incazelo yabo kokuba intoni baye basebenza ngalendlela kokuba nomnye alawulela icele.
But it should be coordinated.
Njengoba usitsho bekufanele ukuba kubekho
The
oyihlanganisayo.
operational commander was Brigadier Collett, so I take it he is the person who should have done the coordination. Is that correct?
Correct, Chairperson.
Njengomphathi phaya uBrigadier Fritz uyena okwakufanele abe yinhloko yolawulo kuso sonke esehlakalo.
At the time of scene 2, was Lieutenant Colonel Vermaak still in the helicopter?
Exesha kwenzeka esehlakalo uFermaak wayesephaya kwinqwelo ntaka.
Chairperson, I need just to confirm at that time there were still 2 choppers. That it is the one of Colonel Vermaak and the one where Brigadier Fritz was.
Ndizawuzama ukuba inqwelo ntaka ezazikhona apho zazimbini enye kule kwakho uFermaak enye kukhona umhlekazi uFritz.
Function was Brigadier Fritz supposed to be performing in the helicopter?
Sebenzi yayenzwa umhlekazi uFritz phaya kwehelicopter kwakuyintoni?
Chairperson, I will request that we should go to his statement because he made it very clear that he was sent by Major General Annandale to go and look. My explanation is in terms of his statement. To go and check the people, because the team that he was having, he had to direct the chopper that was having the NIU and the POP in the Oryx. So he had to go and do the analysis of the groups that have already dispersed, might not come and attack the members from behind.
Okay, thank you.
So it was a wayward checking. Then he could coordinate it with Brigadier Kalitz, because Brigadier Kalitz, he could be concentrating on the side of dispersal.
Yes, so, so I'm sorry to put words in your mouth, and if I'm putting wrong words, you must tell me. But am I correct in thinking from what you say that his job, Brigadier Fritz's job, was essentially to help Brigadier Kalitz by seeing from above what was happening and then giving him information so that he could coordinate the members correctly? Would that be an accurate summary?
Chairperson, I just want to add to say on a wayward, because Brigadier Lieutenant Colonel Vermaak, as he was a post for Brigadier Kalitz. So he had to concentrate where people are moving for Brigadier Kalitz because he couldn't see on the other side of the mountain. And Colonel Brigadier Fritz, he had to go wayward, a little bit wider than...
Would it be fair to say that Lieutenant Colonel Vermaak and Brigadier Fritz had to act as Brigadier Kalitz's eyes in the sky, telling him from above what they could see was happening, which Brigadier Kalitz couldn't see, to enable him to do his job as operational commander? Would that be fair?
In those words, it will be a fair.
Nanko amazwi ngalawo mazwi nivumelana ukuba lamanene amabili uFermaak noFritz xa babhabha ngenqwelo ntaka phaya babengamehlo kaKalitz owaye apha phansi ukuze bamxela babona ntoni nantoni akwazi ukulawula ngendlela apha kwesehlakalo phansi.
Chair, for the record, slide 146 of Exhibit L sets out Brigadier Fritz's task on the day. But Major General, I'd like to take you back to Brigadier Kalitz. You said that as operational commander, if anyone was going to be coordinating the 5 units converging, it would be him. On this photograph, do you know where Brigadier Kalitz was?
kulo mfanekiso ungasho kuba wayephi nendawo Brigadier Fritz?
I do not know precisely, as I have indicated to the chairperson, to say that POP, he should have been there, but I'm not sure where he was at that time.
Did he make a report to you as to what he was doing during, later when you spoke to him in the dock? I take it you spoke to him in the dock, did you? After?
I did, Chairperson.
Now, did he tell you what he was doing at this time that we're busy with now, when the events, when this particular slide was taken of scene 2? Did he tell you what he was doing, if anything?
Chairperson Brigadier Kalitz explained that immediately after the dispersal, he was almost, he has moved from where scene 1 happened. So he was the one that he was actually waiting. He says there was a time where he had to wait a little bit for the members that were left there, because the plan was after the dispersal, the members of TRT dock unit, they had to sweep the mountain for any other exhibits. So then he had to wait for the other POP members, and that's a time when he called to check why people are still waiting at the back. So then that's why he said, I was there, General, waiting for these people to go to the jog. And he also explained that after he left the place, then he also gave the command to say, use the water cannon, disperse, and he also he also ordered the members to go out of the nyalas in a safe area to effect arrest. That you could also hear from the radio, that he is still moving in command of the operation.
Uyavakala phaya kwichopper apho enikeza khona le miyayelo kokutshiza ngamanzi nokuba beze ngaphambili. Uthi wasuka phaya esiya phambili walinda phaya ngoba kwakhona ababeza ngasemva TRT nabe K9 abebezojonga izixhobo ezisele apho kwesehlakalo esisokuca.
In my understanding, it was that after the dispersal, after the people have regrouped, he waited somewhere, and that's where then I'm not sure where he waited at.
Njengoba ndisitsho wasuka apho emva kokuba kusasazwe aba bantu phaya kwabakho indawo apha elinda khona andinanyantsephelele kuba kwayephika kuhlehle.
That's why, Chairperson, to say I'm not sure whether it's him, that one of POP, or is somebody else.
Andingeke ngisho kuba uyena wayephaya apha kubhalwe khona POP noma kwakungomnye umuntu ngelo xesha.
Major General, when you said Brigadier Kalitz told you that he was then, so he waited for a period of time and then he was directing people to arrest protesters. What was your understanding of where those arrests were happening?
Xa esithi mabaye phambili bayobamba babophe ababantu waqonda kokuba ababantu akufanele babanjwe babephi.
In my understanding, the arrests were made where people were being found in the field.
Ukuzwa kwami babebanjwa apho babebanjwa khona kulo ndawo.
Who have been overpowered.
Aba basebe bonganyelwe ngamapolisa.
But he later, after the dispersal of the water, he also went to scene 1.
Emva kokuba sebashizwe ngamanzi.
To scene 2, I'm sorry.
Waye wasondela naye apho kwesehlakalo sesibili.
And now the majority of the arrests were done at scene 2.
Ninzi ke abantu ababoshwa babanjwa phaya kwesehlakalo sesibili.
And firearms that were recovered, most of the firearms were also recovered at scene 2.
Nobuninzi bemibhule yatholwa yafunyanwa apho kweso sehlakalo.
Chair, we've managed to, with the assistance of the SAPs, and I believe they've confirmed these, we've managed to establish which one of the POP vehicles is Brigadier Kalitz's Inyala. If I could ask them to zoom in on him. He's the Inyala below the upper arrowhead that says POP. If we could zoom in.
Uthi baye ngoncedo le SCPS by of man of Brigadier Fritz.
I don't know what you mean by upper arrowhead. There are two arrowheads above the pop box, below the pop box.
Yes.
One is vertical, immediately below the box, and the other one is at an angle.
Yes, Chair, the one that's at sort of 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
His is the Inyala directly below that, sort of sitting by itself. There are 4 vehicles close together, and then there's him further down. Again, in due course, we'll...
If one starts out from the FHA2 box, top right-hand corner, and moves towards the right, immediately below the line which would be drawn if one moved to the right from the top right-hand corner of FH2, there appears to be an Inyala. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, Chair. We've actually managed to introduce a red arrow that's pointing at it, cutting through the vertical pop arrowhead. If you can see that new red arrow we've introduced, pointing at that Inyala, that's Brigadier Fritz.
Now, you better describe it, because when the record is transcribed, that's in the theirs and the arrows and so on won't make sense. So if one starts in the top right-hand corner of the FH2 box and moves to the right, just immediately above that line as one proceeds, about just under halfway between the top right-hand corner of FH2 and the vertical line from the bottom of the pop box, just under halfway, on that distance, just above that, there is an Inyala. You say that according to your information, is Brigadier Carlitz's.
Yes, Chair.
And then if one goes down below that line, that imaginary line, there's another one. It looks as if it's, I'm not sure, it looks like a bush next to it, actually. There's something, it looks something green to the left of it as one looks at it. I don't know what that is, but that's not the Inyala. It's the one you've described, just above that line that I've referred to. Do you see that, Major General?
I could see it,
Yeah,
yes.
obviously you can't tell us whether that's correct, but that's the information that the police have given to Mr.
Sorry,
Rusai.
Chair. My instructions were incorrect. That has not yet been confirmed by the SABC. That's the best of our current analysis. I understand, obviously, when Brigadier Carlitz comes, he should be able to confirm that for us.
Okay. So I was wrong in thinking the police confirmed that, but that's a provisional proposition that's put to you. Asked to assume, I take it for the moment.
And, Chair, again, for Brigadier Carlitz when he comes, the video evidence indicates that he arrives in that position at 16:08 on what we call ETV time in the evidence leader's time presentation, and he doesn't move from that position until at the earliest 16:22 ETV time, and it's between those two times that most of the shooting at scene 2 occurs.
Well, yes, I understand. You
we'll
told us that, but I don't know whether the witness can help us in that.
No.
Do you know anything about that, Major General? You're dependent upon what you were told after the event in the dock, is that right?
Correct, Chairperson.
Now, you've heard what the information of the Human Rights Commission, or their result of their analysis is. I take it, can you comment on whether that's correct or not, based on what you were told subsequently?
No, Chairperson, I cannot comment.
Akakwazi ukuyinqinela loo nto ebekwa ngapha kwakhomishini okokuba wafika apho ngo-16:08 njengokuba ikhombisa i-ETV wahlala kwaze kwaba ngo-16:22.
So far is that there was a period when there was no single person coordinating the activities at scene 2 for the reasons you've explained, and that Brigadier Carlitz, who was the person who was supposed to be coordinating, was waiting in the circumstances that you've explained to us, according to what he told you. Is that right?
Correct, Chairperson.
Njengoba echazile ke ugeneral okokuba kukho ixesha apho abengazange akwazi ukucoordinate kona ngezizathu eziye zanikezwa apha.
Thank you, Chairperson.
I'm sorry, Chairperson, I just want to add to my explanation to say that there was a time when he went forward and he did the dispersal there at scene 2.
Khona ixesha apha ngicela khona uba wayiqhubekela phambili ke ayokwenza olusasazo lo.
And where he ordered also members to
I'm sorry, before Mr. Roux proceeds, put something that occurred to me. I want you to tell me whether what I'm going to put you is correct. It sounds to me as if what was happening at scene 2 was in effect, later on anyway, when Brigadier Fritz moved forward, was in effect the implementation of part of stage 3 of the plan. Obviously, according to what we've been told, what happened at scene 1 happened after the uncoiling of the barbed wire, but it wasn't part of the plan by the SAPS. But thereafter, a number of the strikers dispersed to scene 2. And when they were there, according to what you told us, what then happened was water cannon was used, and an attempt was obviously made to disperse them, and they were dispersed to some extent, I take it. Arrests were made, and people were disarmed because their arms were taken possession of. Is that correct?
Correct, Chairperson, and that some of them, they went into the bush, and some of them, they were also went to the rocks.
Yes, I understand. But it sounds like, to me, and I think you've agreed with this, that in effect what was happening was that part of stage 3 was now being implemented at scene 2, as was explained to you by Brigadier Fritz. That's right, isn't it? That's my impression. I'm just checking whether you agree with me.
Chairperson, according to the crowd management policy, says that whenever you have dispersed the people and they regroup, you need to continue dispersing them. You cannot hold. And I think this is tied up in terms of my statement of G 12, that paragraph 56.
I understand that, but what was happening also, where there was dispersal was happening, which is part of stage 3, disarming was happening to the extent that people were presumably laying down their arms and those were being confiscated, and arrests were being made where possible. Is that right?
Now I understand what the chairperson said. Then I agree on those bases. Yes.
My invitation is withdrawn for the moment. Advocate Hemraj wants to ask the question first.
La kuye kwenzeka khona lento okokuba bahlukaniswe basasaze abantu bathathelwe izixhobo njengoba abanye babanjwa apho sekungena kwimgangatho wesithathu.
General, if you say that someone should be coordinating the scene 2, and that task was supposed to have been within the realm of Brigadier Fritz's duties, did you as overall commander have any discussion with him as to the lack of coordinating of the activities around scene 2?
Njengoba usitsho kokuba phaya kwisahlakalo sesibili kwakufanele kubekho umuntu owayengamele aphethe lo muntu kwakunguBrigadier Fritz, niye nabanentetho naye okokuba ingxaki yakhe yaba yintoni apho?
Correct, Chairperson. And Brigadier Fritz says that he was not aware that there were people that went there on their own initiative.
Utheke kumwayengenalwazi okokuba kukho abantu abaye bachubekela phambili ngokwabo basiya apho. Enkosi.
Major General.
Now you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Major General, as I understand the plan, it was to disperse the protesters to the west, and Copy 3 is to the west of Copies 1 and 2, correct?
Andithi xa usiya kule ntajana yesithathu kungasentshona xa usuka kuleyo kuqala neyesibini.
Chairperson, since I have never been at Copy 3, maybe I will need to confirm it in terms of the map or something else.
I think we
but
can.
What I do know is that the people did regroup, whether it was on the westerly side or Copy 3 was on the westerly side. I am not sure at this stage, unless then there is a map or something that I could confirm it.
Aphandle kokuba kubekho umfanekiso noma into enjengemap engaboniswa kuyo, into endiyaziyo kokuba abantu baphinde bahlangana futhi kuyiphine endawo andinalo ulwazi kakuhle.
Major General, it's a fact that Copy 3 is to the west of Copy 1 and 2, so you can accept that. My question is, in the dispersion plan, did you anticipate that they may regroup in copy 3, given that they would be moving in that direction? Did you anticipate that they might regroup in copy 3?
Nike nabanayo na ingcingo yokuba xa abantu basasazwa besiya phaya ngoba kukhona le ntaba lesithathu ephaya bangahle kwenzeka ukuba baphinde badibane kuloo ndawo bahlangane.
Correct, Chairperson. That is on any normal crowd. It does happen, and that we did anticipate.
Ewe sasicinga into njengaleyo kuyo yonke into enjengale apho kuhlukaniswa khona izinto liyenzeka loo nto.
Major General, what was then the plan? So you'd anticipated they may regroup in copy 3. What was then the plan?
Ngoku icebo nani libekile ukuba xa baphinde badibana nizakwenza ntoni ke General?
It's exactly what I've explained to the Chairperson earlier on, to say you continue dispersing them.
Ndiye ndachaza pha ndathi xa kwesenzeka into enjengaleyo siyaphinda futhi sibasasaze.
And that did happen when Brigadier Fritz gave command to use the water cannon, and go out, do the arrest. It's when he could realize that they have already been properly dispersed. And it's exactly what the Chairperson said, to say, then at that time, stage 3 and stage 4 was happening.
Ngoba sechazile kumhlekazi ngindashona ukuba uyevakala phaya esithi mabachizwe ngamanzi baye phambili bababophe bisiyenzeka ke leyo nto yokuba sekungenwe kwixathu lesithathu.
Major General, are you aware that there are statements from several members, and we'll deal with them when those members are called and appear, but that there are statements from members saying that they were unaware of the presence of the other units on the other side of copy 3, and that it appears as if the gunfire they were hearing and thought came from protesters in fact came from their fellow SABC members who had encircled the copy. Are you aware of those statements?
Unolwazi ngezitatement ezivelayo kwamanye amapolisa athi kweli yacala le bengazi aba ukuba khona amanye amapolisa ngale xa kuduma ezisithonga bacinga ukuba ngabacancalaza badubulayo kanti kudubula oxababa amapolisa amanye.
Chairperson, the only person that I'm aware of is Brigadier Fritz. When he said to me, he was not aware that there were people in front, but that there are statements which have been taken that could have been done afterwards, and which I don't have knowledge of it.
Statements were taken subsequently, obviously.
Yes.
But, you say you don't know about that.
I don't know.
All you know about is what Brigadier Fritz told you, presumably on the night of the 16th, which you repeated to us. Is that right?
Correct, Chairperson.
Into yaziyo ile ngxela ixela nguBrigadier Fritz okuba kwenzeka ntoni ukuba naye wamangala ukuba kukho abantu sebangale kweli yacala ebengabazi.
And Chairperson, just to add is also that General Naidu took his own initiative, and I said also Captain Kidd took his own initiative. That is what I know.
La manene amabili athatha amaxesha ngokwawo bezicingela bengaxelelwanga ngumuntu babenza ngolodlo.
I'll ask you a question about that. When an officer takes his own initiative, I'm not suggesting improperly, but when he takes his own initiative because he considers it necessary, is it normally expected of him or her, if it's a lady, that the operational commander should be told? In other words, when Captain Kidd, for example, took his own initiative, as he explained to you, would you have expected him to have got on the radio and told Brigadier Fritz, this is what I've done, so that Brigadier Fritz could know what was happening? Or either Brigadier Fritz, I suppose, or the jock, but let's confine ourselves to Brigadier Fritz for the moment. But anyway, if he got on the radio to Brigadier Fritz, the jock would have heard anyway, wouldn't they? So it wouldn't have been two separate communications, it would have been one.
Correct,
right. Now the question is, would you have expected Captain Kidd, when he took his own initiative and moved forward as he did, to have communicated that to the operational commander and to by the same radio communication and to the jock?
Esenza esisigqibo ukhetho kokuba ndiyachubeka ndenza oku bekuyimfanelo nako ukuba angene kunomathotholo axelele uBrigadier Fritz ikanena axelele ijoko ukuba leli nyathelo lithathayo ngoku xa kunesidingo sokuba enze njalo kwakuyimfanelo leyo.
Correct, Chairperson.
Ewe kunjalo mhle.
Do we know whether he did?
Lwazi
Well, I don't know, but I'm asking you, do you know from your information whether he did?
ngokwazi kwakho wayenza loo nto.
Chairperson, I asked him that question. He said that's when the most problem of the radio communication was raised.
Mbuza lo mbuzo Mhlekazi ewe. Wathi ke kungelo xesha efumana okokuba kukho ingxaki nge-radios ezingonomathotholo apha.
Major General, in the transcript of the Protea coin chopper, Brigadier Fritz is heard addressing what he calls TAC teams. What are TAC teams?
Vakala phaya kwinqwelontaka leyo ye-Protea coin ethetha nababizwa i-tech team ngeyiphi leyo?
Chairperson, I don't know what's a tech team. Maybe if we can listen to the radio, I might be able to interpret it.
Mhlawumbe xa singeva loo ntetho andiyazi ukuba i-tech team yintoni luthetha ngayo.
Major General, we think he might mean tactical team, but if you don't know, we can ask Brigadier Fritz when he comes.
Sizabuza uKhalesi xa efika kodwa sicinga uba yi-tactical team.
Chair, I'm moving on to a new topic. I'm not sure when you want to take the adjournment.
Well, we did take an adjournment at one point in the middle of the witness's evidence, remember.
I'm happy to continue.
If you would prefer me to take the adjournment now, I will, because you may have things you want to look at in the adjournment. So otherwise, let's proceed on the basis that when it's appropriate for you, you'll let me know and we'll take the adjournment.
Yes. Chair, I have two short topics that remain in my cross-examination. Major General.
That's so. It's always sensible for counsel to take the adjournment just before you get to the last bits of cross-examination, because you may well discover thereafter there's something else you would like to have dealt with. So perhaps it's a good idea for us to take the adjournment now, so you can finally wrap up. Are you going to deal with those SMSs, or that SMS? You asked for some SMSs, or an SMS. I can't remember the singular or plural. And an undertaking was given that you'd get them. Are you going to be dealing with those before you stop cross-examining? Are those among the two topics that you referred to?
Not currently, but Chair, I'll take a further instruction.
Good reason then for us to take the adjournment.
Commission is about to commence. Or kabafana konyana anyani. Commission is commencing.
The Commission resumes. Major General, you're still under oath.
Correct, Chairperson.
Phansi kwesifungo General.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, over the adjournment, I have received instructions, and the specific SMS provided by Major General Mpembe doesn't raise any questions that I'll be putting, but the general issue of cell phone records, we will continue to engage with the SAPs around that. So I still only have 2 topics left.
There were 2 issues, weren't there? The one was cell phone records, and the other was whether the police could confirm or deny that whether all the entries in the occurrence book were based upon radio reports. So that was the foundation of your cross-examination on one of your aspect cross-examination. And that was queried, you remember. And I suggested you ascertain from the police what the position was. I take it, I can assume from what you're telling me that you haven't yet ascertained what the position is in that regard.
Correct, Chair. But we will continue to engage.
If the information comes to the effect that all the entries were based on radio reports, I take it you would want a witness to come back, would you?
Chair, I think that's premature. I think we should wait to see what we ascertain, and then we'll take instructions and advise the Commission accordingly. I wouldn't like to commit now.
Yes, no, I understand. All right. Well, then proceed with your cross-examination.
Thank you, Chair. Major General, could you turn to Exhibit FFF7, which is a statement provided by Warrant Officer Myberg.
Oma singajonga statement ska Warrant Officer Mayberg.
Chairperson, I'm just requesting on the documents that have been provided, what number is that?
Well, the real question is whether Ms. LaRue wants to put them in or... these we've been handed some documents. I don't know what the fate of them is going to be, but Ms. LaRue will have to tell us for the moment. She's in charge in the sense that she's the cross-examiner at the moment.
Major General,
you are internal. I want to know about some documents. So, let's deal with your query first. Well, what's your query?
It's not such a query, but myself and Advocate LaRue, we do have the index. So if she can just tell me what number is that statement, then I can go directly to it.
Yes, and I'm sorry, Major General, when I look at this, the exhibits in the FFF range are your item 4, but this FFF7 is not in that list, I'm afraid. It's an exhibit. We'll have to provide that to you. Do you have a full set of exhibits available to you?
No, Chairperson.
In other words, Chair, the witness wouldn't have had time to read this because he wasn't forewarned that it was going to be used.
Chair, it's a 2-page statement. Perhaps we could locate it and provide it to Major. I apologize for this. I didn't know that it hadn't been included in the list.
Is this Mr. Myberg's statement?
Correct.
Uzanika ixeshana uGeneral ukuba kasijonge istatement esikaMapper.
Major General, if you want a bit of time to read the document, you want me to take a short adjournment, I will. Otherwise, if you're happy to read it quietly while we wait for you to familiarize yourself with its contents, we'll do that as well. Tell me what you want me to do.
Chairperson, I will just want to take time to read it.
You want me to adjourn, or are you happy that we sit here quietly while you read it? It's only 2 pages. But I'm in your hands.
The commission can sit quietly and then to check on it.
Very well.
We
will try to be quiet. Anyway, I'm not sure we control everybody else.
I'm sorry, Chairperson.
And to apologize. Just
I am through, Chairperson.
so can Advocate Leroux now start questioning you?
Correct, Chairperson.
Chairperson, I object. This statement has been the subject of cross-examination with the National Commissioner.
Sir?
And there is no way the General can be able to comment, and I know reference is going to be made to paragraph 3 of this statement. And he can't possibly know what happened at scene 2. He wasn't there.
He did receive information subsequently from some of the commanders there, and I think the questions are permissible. And the fact that the National Commissioner has been asked isn't a reason why he shouldn't be asked as well. When I gave my ruling earlier, I said I didn't want the same point raised over and over again ad nauseam. I don't think that stage has been reached. Please proceed. I disallow the objection. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Major General, were you aware of this report by Warrant Officer Myberg?
Buza ukuba ubenalo na ulwazi ngale report kaMapper uGeneral.
Chairperson, the first time that I heard about it, it was during the commission at Rustenburg.
Ndiqala ukuva ngale nto kwi-commission eRustenburg.
If that's the end of the point, Mr. Leroux.
Just one follow-up, Chair. Major General, do you know what the SAP's whistleblowing policy is? We have requested it from the SAPs and are yet to receive it. Do you know what the SAP's whistleblowing policy is?
Unolwazi nalo kokuba imithetho ephathelene nokuveza ingxelo ezithize ezizemfihlakalo apha emapoliseni isebenza ngoluphi uhlobo.
Chairperson, if the question could be specific, because we don't have a whistleblowing, but we do have policies with regard to informers, policies with regard to us it will be an informers policy. I don't know whether a whistleblower, are you equated to informer?
Whistleblower, I take it, is someone in the organization who is aware of some irregularity, criminal offense or irregularity of some other kind, who then reports it to a superior so it can be dealt with. In the private sphere, very often there is a procedure in place which protects the identity of the whistleblower in some cases from disclosure, or in other cases prevents the whistleblower from being disciplined for reporting what has been reported. But normally it's someone in the organization who's giving information. I take it your informer policy relates, generally speaking, to outside people who provide information to the police. So the real question is there a policy, and if so, are you aware of it, relating to the kind of situation that I sketched in relation to information coming from people within the organization? Do you want to elaborate on my attempt to explain?
No, Chair, I think that was more than adequate.
Chaze ngokupheleleyo umhlekazi omgcini sihlalo kokuba lento athetha ngayo whistleblower ngumuntu onjani lo kuthiwa ngumuntu ongaphakathi kwi-organization okhupha ingxelo engaphakathi engavezwa ukuba ngubani ngegama.
Chairperson, after the explanation to us, it will be a policy which discourages corruption. That will say what a member should do when he realizes that there is corruption within. That's the one that I know.
There is recent legislation on the point, but I understand, I'm not sure if it's enforced yet, but certainly wasn't enforced, as I understand it, in August 2012. So we don't have to look at that. The question is whether before the legislation came before Parliament, there was an internal policy in the police service dealing with that kind of situation. You say, as far as corruption is concerned, there was, but I don't think the question is related to that. So perhaps you can reformulate, because I think the witness now knows what you're talking about. So perhaps you could proceed with the point.
Thank you, Chair.
Sure, umuntu onjengaloyo ngaba ngumuntu ophaya emsebenzini oveza izenzo zenkohlakalo ezingavunyelwanga.
Major General, are you aware of any policy of the SAPS that would cover the situation where one member sees another member do something wrong in the course of their duties, not corruption, but something like what's set out in the statement of Warrant Officer Myburg? Do you know of a policy of how that member can report that within the organization for investigation?
Buzo kokuba khona na umthetho awaziyo obekiwe apha esponiseni okuba umuntu onengxelo enjengale kaMayburg apha uyiveza ngohlobo olinjani kwabaphethe.
Chairperson, not a written policy, but a policy that has been done over some years. Yes, that one I can talk about from experience field.
Into endiyaziyo nje into enziwa ngesiqhelo ke njengo into eyenzekayo engabhalwanga phansi besenzeka yonke leminyaka.
What he's saying is that there's a practice rather than a document that specifies it.
Correct, Chairperson.
Uthi noma engabhalwanga phansi kukho indlela ethize ezivezwa ngayo ezo zinto.
Major General, what is that practice?
Indlela enjani ke leyo mhlekazi?
The practice will be that when a member sees something wrong, the member will report that to the next commander, the second commander. And the second commander will be upon his duty to make sure that what the member is requesting, it will happen. And in the case that actually the problem that has been seen, it has to be addressed in a manner that is not going to affect the junior member. But it has to be done with respect, and it has to be done in the policy with regarding to discipline.
Uthi ke kukho izindlela zokuba xa ilungu ipolisa libona into ethize yenziwa umgqawalo inindlela ukuba ayiyazise ongaphezulu bese kuba semagxeni aloyo ke ozokwenza okokuba mayiphandwe ijongisise leyo nto ilungiswe ngaphandle kokuthi elilungu liyivezile livelelwe noma ngayintoni.
And Major General, is the practice limited to reporting within your command structure? Is there any practice of reporting to an independent person?
Ifanele ivezwe ngaphakathi emsebenzini kumapolisa ikanene unegunya lokuba angayikhuphela nangaphandle.
Is not only limited to the within the structure. The member, like any other members of the community, a member, if he reported it, he can do it in a dual purpose. If you are referring to the oversight bodies over the police, a member can do that, and there will be no steps taken against that member. For example, a member can report it to the MEC for safety and security in the province, or the member can report it to IPED, or even to the public protector.
Kwezindlela ezininzi ngaphandle kokuba ayibike apha ngaphakathi kukho izindlela eziningi kanjengelungu lasekuhlaleni angayiripota noma ku-MEC weprovince ayiripote kwi-IPED noma ayisegqithele ku-public protector.
Thank you, Major General. Chair, I'd then like to move on to my final topic of cross-examination, which relates to the Mail and Guardian article that my learned friend for SAPS has already raised an objection to, and I believe he wanted addressed not in open session. I don't know if he persists in that preliminary request that we deal with whether the document is dealt with in public session. I certainly have submissions in that regard, but perhaps I should understand what my learned friend's position is.
Well, the question I'd like to ask you before we get there is what is the relevance of those allegations?
Uthi uzawuqhubeka ngokabuza imibuzo maqondane phephandaba elibizwa ngokuba yi-Mail and Guardian. Andazi ke noma kukho into abafuna ukuthi baye ngayithetha mhlawumbe okhusini. Umhlekazi umgcini isihlalo uthi iphathelene isinceda ngantondonto apha.
To that, I'm informed that the time the objection was raised by Mr. Ndulwana, that date, the press came into possession of the document, and it was extensively reported by one of the media houses. The full text, I think, of the Mail and Guardian article was reported. So the matter has already received extensive publicity, so there'd be no point, as I see it, prima facie, subject was Mr. Ndulwana might say, in holding the hearing in camera. And anyway, something I'm reluctant to do, because this commission, one of the things it stresses is it's concerned to investigate these matters in an open and transparent fashion. But that aside, I'm still not quite sure what the relevance of these allegations is. And I'd be grateful if you'd address me on those.
Thank you, Chair.
Okokuba iphathelene isinceda ngantondonto noma sivelile isinto esilangalalene yaziwa yavezwa ngeliphepha.
Chair, based on the article, I want to ask the Major General essentially two questions which I submit are relevant in two respects. The two questions are, what is the status of the charges that were brought against him, and what is the status of his claim against the SAPS, which is reported in that article?
What's the relevance of that?
It's relevant.
I'm sorry. These are things that happened after the events of the 16th, aren't they? Allegations were made against him that he was present and effectively permitted, encouraged, perhaps, or allowed torture of people. He was arrested, detained for some time. He feels that it was an unlawful arrest, and he suffered damages in consequence, and he's claiming the damages. Now, I don't see how it's going to help us to know what the outcome of that is in answering the questions that have been put to us to be answered. If you can explain that to me, I'd be grateful.
Umgcini sihlalo beka ngokuba lento yinto eyenzeke emva kwesehlakalo ngoku ke if ingena kanjani kule nto eyenzeka ngoba i-commission le iphanda izinto ezaba imbangela yesi sehlakalo sithetha ngaso le yinto eyenzeke emva koko.
Chair, as I stated earlier, we believe it would assist the Commission and be relevant in two respects. The first is it goes to the evaluation of the Major General's evidence. As we've already covered this morning, the Human Rights Commission in due course will be submitting that, as overall commander, he was not actually in overall command. And so we then are trying to understand why the Major General's testimony says he was, and, it wasn't the Provincial Commissioner, it wasn't the National Commissioner, it was him. And it's possible that the status of the claim against the SAPs arising out of the charges against him may inform that motivation, could inform your evaluation of his evidence.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that. And I'm given the power under the regulations to disallow cross-examination, even if it has some relevance. If I'm satisfied it's not sufficiently relevant to help the Commission to do its work and come to conclusions. You're not suggesting, as I understand it, this is relevant for his credibility, is it? And even then it would be very tangentially so. Obviously we can take note of the fact, because I take it basically common cause, that he was arrested, that he instituted a claim. Those facts we know, I take it. But does it go beyond that?
Well, Chair, the difficulty is we don't know if he has instituted a claim. We know that there's a letter of demand for R1 million that, if not responded to, would result in the summons being issued. We don't know if he has sued SAPs. Perhaps SAPs have settled that case. Perhaps the terms of that settlement relate to his cooperation and participation in the Commission.
Well,
that would go to the evaluation of his evidence.
That seems to me to be inherently speculative. And, are you suggesting that he'd settled the case, he may have settled the case, on the basis that he must come and commit perjury here to support the SAPS case? Unless it's something like that, which is totally speculative, so fanciful. Prima facie, I think I must exercise my power under the regulations to disallow it.
Andivumelani nokuba ubuze lo mbuzo ngoba lento ivezayo ngoku ithi uGeneral wenza mhlawumbe wavumelana
nababa CPS. We've got enough things to think about. We've got limited time. And something as tangential and remote as that, if it's got any relevance at all, I'm afraid isn't going to help us. There's a lot of material which you've elicited in cross-examination which may well assist us and for which we're grateful. And I think, if I may be permitted to say this, the Commission, the Human Rights Commission, is playing a meaningful role here in this Commission, and we're grateful for its participation. But this particular one is a bridge too far, I think. So I will disallow cross-examination on this.
If
you want to say something,
kwezinto ezithethile ezivezile kodwa ke le uza nayo ngoku andivumelani nayo tutu.
I want to say something further.
Phandle kokuthi kukho enye into phandle kuyiveza senze eso sigqibo.
Chair, if I may just raise a point in keeping with the spirit of the new expanded role of the evidence leaders. This issue of the charges that the General was facing was raised by Mr. Mpofu during his cross-examination of both General Piecha and General Annandale. And the point which Mr. Mpofu was arguing, Chair, which we submit might be a valuable one for the Commission to consider, was that the allegations of assault were part of a general theme of brutality of the police. It was a theme that started before the 16th and the 13th and carried on until after the miners were arrested. And that was the context within which Mr. Mpofu raised the question of the allegations of assault.
I don't understand Ms. LaRue to be wanting to advance the point on that basis. She said she wants to know, she wants details of the claim, and she wants to know whether it's been settled, and she wants to know, presumably, the terms of the settlement. I don't understand how the point to which you referred is covered by that.
Chair.
Nayo andibone ihambelana nento ethethwa ngumama lo ngoba yena ufuna ukwazi ezinye izinto ezigqitha kule nto osuyithethile uyivezile.
Chair, the intervention by Advocate Pillay is obviously a supplementary reason. Perhaps it could be dealt with by the evidence leaders. But my instructions are also that the family that was represented by the Legal Resources Centre also intended to raise, for the purposes of evaluating the credibility of the Major General's evidence, this claim that was pending, and its status and whether it has any impact on how this evidence should be considered. So my instructions are also that it was a point to be raised by the LRC.
I understand that, but it doesn't mean it was a good point. Here's something that happened subsequently. he lodged a claim. I mean, without going into the question whether it was a good claim or a bad claim, which is very much a side issue. And then if it's been settled, the terms of the settlement, really, I hear what you say about the Legal Resources Centre wanting to take the point as well. It doesn't make it a better point because they want to take it. I'm afraid.
Chair, could I make one final submission, which is this, that this particular point of how the existence of the charges and the status of the suit impacts the evaluation of Major General Mpembe's evidence is one aspect, but that situates within a broader point, a broader context, which is and it is a theme that has already come up in the Commission, I believe will be explored in even more detail as we go forward, which is the overall credibility, cooperation, nature of presentation of evidence to this Commission by the SAPs is a theme that I know other parties are certainly exploring. Has there been full disclosure? Has there been a particular I'm trying to find the appropriate word. Has there been, Potchefstroom, etc.?
I understand that issue. It raises questions about Potchefstroom. It raises points about videos and all that kind of thing. I understand that. But I still don't see how this particular issue has a bearing on that. Here's a claim which arose, allegedly arose, after the events. Firstly, he was arrested, apparently. Then he was kept in custody for some time. And he now is bringing a claim against the SAPs for that. Whether it's been settled or not, neither here nor there. But I don't understand how that could have any impact on the cooperation or lack thereof of the police as far as this Commission is concerned. And I don't think the SAPs can be blamed, for example, for not leading evidence on this point, because it's irrelevant, as I see it. But even if it is tangentially relevant, is it of sufficient relevance to justify an inquiry which might well raise all sorts of other issues that will be looked at, while we should be concentrating on the events as far as phase one is concerned, which are the deaths of the 44 people that we're concerned with, not just the 34, but all 34 of them, including the security officers from London, the other employees of London, and the members of the police force. These are the matters we must concentrate on. Let's keep our eye on those balls rather than on this side issue, which isn't going to help us very much. So I'm afraid I've heard what you have to say, and without calling on Mr. Ngluwana for the benefit of his submission to the point, I have made the ruling that I have. If the evidence leaders want to approach it on some other basis, we'll deal with that as and when the occasion arises.
Sisigqibo senziwayo umphathisihlalo kokuba akayivumeli lento ezawubuzwa ngoku ngoba ngokuya ngokwakhe into eyenzeke emva kwayo yonke lento noma ethetha kokuba aba Legal Resources Centre abamele abanye babandekanyekayo bafuna ukuyiveza nayo lento izizathu ezivezelayo nangoku aziphathelene azisincedi nganto kulento ngoba iCommission ijongene nezehlakalo zaba bantu abaseleka ngabanga-44.
Chair, in light of that ruling, the South African Human Rights Commission has no further questions for Major General Mpembe at this stage.
Thank you very much. Today I understand you and I are going to cross-examine.
Chair, I spoke too soon. I have a housekeeping issue, which is that the South African Human Rights Commission team has prepared a document which summarizes the status of the contemporaneous documents before the Commission, which is where our cross-examination commenced. It has been provided to the Major General, to the SAPS team, and to the evidence leaders. We would like to submit that to the Commissioners for their assistance. I'll obviously receive any objections or feedback from that and then hopefully be able to provide that to the Commissioners today.
Well, you've have your learned friends for the parties who are with us all seen that document?
Chair, we've provided it to the Major General and the SAPS team and only the evidence leaders at this stage. We'll circulate it more broadly if the Commissioners would like before we submit to the Commissioners.
Well, yes, you see, if anyone objects, I mean, obviously any assistance we can get that will help us, we gratefully receive, but if there are objections, I suppose I should give people opportunity to raise them. But if everybody here hasn't got it yet, maybe it's premature. You'll still be with us, I take it, as the evidence unfolds. So you can, at an appropriate stage, once all the relevant housekeeping boxes have been ticked, raise the matter from where you are. Right?
Thank you, Chair.
uthi usegqibile ngembuzo apha ku-general kodwa kukho uglobal elibhalile aza kulinikeza kumanye abameli apha xa bangenangxaki nganalo izabe selinikezwa kwikomishini xa lingaba uncedo oluthize.
Yes, Ms. Pillay, I understand you're going to cross-examine, you wish to cross-examine. Since the erstwhile leader, now Justice Madlanga, asked questions of the witness on behalf of the evidence leaders, we've made a ruling relating to parties who are not represented to make sure their version is presented to us. And I understand, I was told in chambers, that you propose, in terms of that ruling we made, to ask questions of the witness. Is that correct?
Chair, that is correct.
Right. Please proceed.
And I may just indicate, Chair, that I will be careful not to repeat any of the questions that have been asked already.
I'm sure if you do, there will be objections, and I'm sure you'll endeavour to avoid those. Please proceed.
Mama Pillay uzawubuza imibuzo egameni laba abamele abazisa ukunqina ngaphambili uthi kodwa uyazenza zonke inzamo angabuza imibuzo eke yabuzwa phambilini.
Thank you, Chair. General, you agree that the primary instrument which governs crowd management and public order policing is Standing Order 262. Is that correct?
Uyavumelana nami okokuba incwadi ke eyona iphezulu xa kulawulwa izikhwele Standing Order 262.
Correct, Chairperson.
Ewe kunjalo.
And we know, General, that Standing Order 262 has been refined. Refined is my word. I think the Chair has in the past used the word glossed. By Exhibit S before you, which is the National Instruction on the Use of Force in Public Order Policing. Is that correct?
Uyavumelana nami iyongezwa ke xa kubhalwa phaya olunye uxwebhu elikhombisa okokuba makusetshenzwe kanjani ekulawulweni kwezihlwele.
Chairperson, that is not my understanding, but this letter is also a policy that has to be complied with. My understanding is that there is still a process whereby Standing Order 262 will be reviewed, and that will come as a national instruction. That is my understanding currently.
Olukwebhu uthetha ngalo ke ngumthetho ofanele ulandele kusetshenzwa kodwa ngokwazi kwami Standing Order 262 sisendleleni ngokusiyalungiswa sizawuphuma ke njengencwadi engumgaqo.
But you do accept that to the extent that Exhibit S is an instruction from the National Commissioner to members of SABC, that it is binding on the members of SABC?
Correct.
Uyavumelana nami okokuba ngumthetho ngumyalelo ovela ku-National Commissioner indlela ekufanele kusetshenzwe ngayo. Ewe.
Now, what I will seek to do, General, is to conduct the bulk of my cross-examination within the framework of Standing Order 262 and Exhibit S.
Dizincwadi ke ezimbini amaxwebhu endizawubuza imibuzo yami phezu kwawo le endizivezile.
Now, there are a number of reasons for doing this, General, but the most important of those reasons is that I'd like to convey to you the relevance of the questions to what we will eventually be making submissions on at the culmination of these proceedings.
Zawubuza le mbuzo ke General ndenzele okokuba ngoba izawuvela kwizindululo eseza kuziveza kule commission.
And one of the primary issues on which we will make submissions is on whether or not SABC complied with all the applicable prescripts.
Enye ke into esizokuyiveza okokuba i-SABC iyasebenza ngendlela efanele na ngayo yonke amaxesha.
If I may then ask you, General, to turn to Exhibit SS2, which is Standing Order 262.
Ake sijonge i-SS is Standing Order 262.
Chairperson is not in the file. May I request that a copy, but I do.
It's important for the purposes of my cross-examination that you have the document before you, General, so we'll just take a few minutes.
Earlier, I lent him my copy of Exhibit SS2, which is the Standing Order, and he's still got it, so It's loose in front of him.
Then he didn't put it in line with what? Thanks, Chairperson. I did get it. It's not filed in terms of the...
If you've got your own copy, you can give me one back, but... This time, you can give back to me at lunchtime. Let's just carry on. As long as you've got a copy in front of you, and you can follow the questions that are put.
Thanks, Chairperson.
General, we see that the heading is crowd management during, and these are the important words, gatherings and demonstrations. Do you agree?
Correct, Chairperson.
ibhale apha kulawo kesihlele xa kukho gatherings inhlangano apho kuqhankqalazwa.
And if you look at the definition section, General, which is section 2 of Standing Order 262, I'd like you to turn to the definition of gathering and the definition of demonstration. And you'll see, General, in relation to both words, that Standing Order 262 incorporates the definition of these words from the Regulation of Gatherings Act.
Awujonga apho kuthethwa khona nge-demonstrations ne-gathering uzawubona okokuba yinto ekhutshwe phaya emthethweni.
Now, what I'll request, Chair, is that the technician puts up the definition of gathering and demonstration from Section 1 of the Regulation of Gatherings Act.
Useyibekile phaya.
And General, I've given a copy of this to your team just to ensure that they're comfortable that that's an accurate extraction from the Act. You will see that Section 1 defines a demonstration as any, and I emphasize the word any, demonstration by one or more persons, but not more than 15 persons, for or against any person, cause, action, or failure to take action. A gathering is defined as any assembly, concourse, or procession of more than 15 persons in or on any public road as defined. Do you see that, General?
Bona ezinkcazelo ezimbili okokuba akufanelanga abo bantu bahlangene bagqithe kubantu abalishumi nanhlanu noma ngeliphi ixesha kwizindlela.
Chairperson, I do see it.
Ndiyayibona.
So what that means, General, is that a group of less than 15, any group of less than 15 people amounts to a demonstration for the purposes of Section 1, and if there are more than 15 people, it amounts to a gathering in terms of Section 1.
Uyabona apho kuba i-demonstration ichaza abantu abangaphansi kwe-15 xa begqitha apho ke kuye kubizwa ngokuba zizihlele i-gathering.
Where the purposes of that gathering falls within, and if we can just go further down the slide. Falls within those subdivisions.
Bese ichazwa kabanzi ke phaya kwezi ezilandelayo ku-A naku-B.
And I'd like you to look at sub B, General. It's held to form pressure groups to hand over petitions to any person or to mobilize or demonstrate support for or opposition to the views, principles, policies, actions, or omissions of any person or body of persons or institutions. Do you see that, General?
Correct, Chairperson.
Uyayibona lento kokuba abantu bahlangene ngenjongo ephi, ngenjongo eyokwenza ntoni, zibhaliwe ke izinto zokuba ucindezelo oluthize, ukunikezwa kwe-petitions, kwenza i-demonstration noma ukuvumelana nokungavumelani nezinto ezithize noma phi.
So you would agree with me, General, that a group of, let's say, 200 people marching, a group of 200 workers marching to the premises of their employer would fall within the definition of a gathering under the Regulation of Gatherings Act?
Uzawuvumelana nami ngokuba abantu abangaba ngamakhulu amabini behamba behlangene besiya kwindawo yomqeshi bawela phansi kwale nkcazelo yezihlelo.
Chairperson, I will request maybe we should see Roman figure 1. I only see Roman figure 2. So maybe if we can check what is said by Roman figure 1.
Singabona jonga nje phaya ku Roman figure 1 ukuba inkcazelo ithini apho.
No, General, the way you see it now is the relevant portions. We've excluded all the irrelevant portions. So Roman 2 onwards is irrelevant. So what you see now is the relevant portions of the section.
Uthi apha siyasakhupha nje eziphathelene nale ntetho ezinye kasizivezanga ngoba ngazingaphathelene nale ntetho endikuyo.
The question is that a group of 200 workers marching to the premises of its employer would fall within the scope of B. It's to form pressure groups to hand over petitions to any person or to mobilize or to demonstrate support for or opposition to the views, principles, policy, actions or omissions of any person or body of persons or institution. Do you agree, General?
Iyavuma kokuba abantu abangaba kumakhulu amabini besiya kulo obaqashile bayokwenza noma intoni bawela phansi kwalenkcazelo enikezwe apha yokuba sizihlwele.
Correct, Chairperson, as lawmen will also fall under that part.
Ewe ndiyavumelana nawe ne-lawmen wela phansi kwalenkcazelo.
And we know from the definition of a gathering in Standing Order 262 that if something qualifies as a gathering under the Regulation of Gatherings Act, then it would qualify as a gathering under the Standing Order.
Uyavumelana nami ukuba xa bewela phansi kwalenkcazelo lena standing order sivumelana nale bavumelana nenkcazelo ebanikezwe yona kwi-Standing Order 262.
Correct, Chairperson, subject also to the Regulation of Gatherings Act that requires certain actions from the organizers.
Ewe bese kungena ke lo mthetho ekuthiwa i-Regulations of Gathering Act ebeka nayo imibandela nemithetho ethize.
So, General, the significance of what I've covered with you now is twofold. Firstly, it means that Standing Order 262 applies to any gathering, and I emphasize any because that's the word used in the Act, in the Regulation of Gatherings Act.
Vumelana nami ke ukuba linkcazelo ethi noma ngeyiphi inhlangano enjengaleyo iwela phansi kwenkcazelo ebekwe phansi kwalomthetho.
And the thrust of the proposition is this, General, irrespective of whether the gathering is spontaneous or not.
Inkcazelo ke ndithanda ukuyenza kokuba noma ehleliwe noma mhlawumbe into eyenzeka ngesacuphe iwela phansi kwalenkcazelo.
Chairperson, before I can answer the question, may I also request that we check the background of Standing Order 262, the same SS2, paragraph 1 and 2.
Phambi kokuba ndiphendule ndicela ukuba masijonge phaya kwi-Standing Order apho sithi khona i-background ku-1 naku-2 okokuba ichaza kanjani le.
General, I'm happy to deal with the background, and we'll do that in a moment. If you could just answer the question for now, and the question is...
No, with respect, Chair, no question has been posed. You just put a proposition to him, and the witness is entitled to it.
Let her ask the question, then we can proceed. Point to take, you haven't asked a question yet, so I suggest you say something with a question mark after it, and then we can carry on.
Thank you, Chair. I'll do that. General, do you agree that the definition of gathering in Standing Order 262 would apply to any gathering, including a spontaneous one?
In fact, that's a legal question, Chair, with respect.
Ubuza umbuzo ngokuphathelene nomthetho kufanele uchaze ngabazi umthetho kokuba wela phansi kwaleyo nkcazelo na
Chair, we know from a factual perspective that the witness was appointed as the CJOC under Standing Order 262, and one of the requirements is that the person appointed as the CJOC has to be fully conversant with Standing Order 262.
No, but you see, there are two issues. The one is what's the law, what's the meaning of the Standing Order. Another one, and you don't normally ask witnesses for their views on questions of law. But the second question, which could be relevant, is the understanding of a witness as to the legal, as to what the law is, which would then form the basis of further questioning. So if your question is directed not to what the law says, but what the witness understood the law to say or to mean, then I'll allow it. But if it's the former, then I'll uphold Mr. Ngulwane's objection.
Ingxaki ekhona apha kokuba kuthethwa ngokungezemthetho apha ubekwe njengesijoko kube kufanele kube ngumuntu ozaziyo ezezinto uthi umhlekazi iyawuba kabini le nto kuba umuntu owazi umthetho noma umuntu oyivisisayo le nto kuba umthetho uchazwa ntoni apha.
Chair, probably the latter.
Definitely the latter. I'll allow the question.
General, if you may answer the question that I posed to you, that's that the definition of gathering in Standing Order 262 includes a spontaneous gathering.
Uyavumelana nami ukuba incazelo ye-gatherings njengoba ibeke phaya ku-262 isho nezi izinhlangano into eyenzeke ngesacuphe.
Sorry, the question really relates to what you understood the Standing Order to be saying and the law to be saying, because it's relevant in order to assess your actions and whether they were lawful and so on. And did you understand the Standing Order and the Act to refer not only to organised gatherings, you know, where there's an organiser who comes forward and gives information to the police and a plan's drawn up and all that kind of thing, but also to spontaneous, unplanned or unnotified gatherings? Did you understand that the Act and the Standing Order applied to those gatherings as well?
Umbuzo ke njengoba bemchazela umhlekazi ukuba uyive kanjani lento yena uyiva kanjani ngokuba i-standing order apho sithetha khona nge-gathering sithetha ngezinhlangano ezihleliwe nazodwa noma mhlawumbe sihlele eziye zenzeka njengesacuphe.
Chairperson, my understanding is that that is normally also brought in by the policy on crowd management. The spontaneous one, we call it, we legalize it, we put it in brackets, in the manner we handle it. The understanding is that we still have to register a docket in terms of the Regulation of Gatherings Act because there was no notice served. But in handling it, we police it as if a notice has been served.
I see that paragraph 14 of the Standing Order deals with unforeseen brackets spontaneous gatherings.
Enikeziwe apha kumhlathi we-14 apho ithetha khona ngezinto ezinjengezi nhlanganiso eziye zasuka njengesacuphe zingahlelwanga.
It's quite clear, and I'm sure this would be your understanding as well, that the Standing Order applies also to unforeseen brackets spontaneous gatherings. Is that right?
Chairperson, I will request that maybe I need to be broadened in terms of my understanding. The understanding of that we still, in managing it, we have to manage it as if a notice has been served. But we still have to act by against the conveners if later they are found that they have been identified according to the Regulation of Gatherings Act.
I think the point is that the conveners are the people who get into trouble because they should have given notice.
Correct, Chairperson.
I don't want to anticipate the cross-examination, but I think the point raised by Mr. Budlinder when he cross-examined General Annandale was that the attenders, some people wrongly call them attendees, but the attenders, they don't commit a crime. It's only the conveners who commit the crime, not by being at the gathering, but by having a gathering and failing to give the necessary notices and so on. I think that's the point. You remember it was covered with General Annandale. Is that your understanding as well?
Chairperson, correctly.
Uyiva ngolo hlobo no general okokuba xa kuyinto eyenzeke ngesacuphe nje abantu bathathele izinyathelo xa kufumana okokuba ngabo abahlele lento le ngabahleli bayo hayi wonke umuntu okhoyo apho osile nje.
I just want to add to my understanding in terms of the policing of a gathering where notice is served and a gathering where notice is not served. My understanding, it will also go to paragraph 2 if the Commission allows that.
I think Ms. Pillay is concerned to understand what your understanding was of the position. So she nods her head. So I think you must proceed as you were intending to proceed and give us your understanding
injongo
of the position in
kaMama
relation
uPhile
to
kokubona ukuba
notified
uGeneral
gatherings and non-notified gatherings.
ubeyiqonda kanjani umahluko phakathi kwento enziwe ehleliwe kwakhushwa isaziso apho kungakhushwanga khona saziso.
General, before we can easily cover that terrain, but my next proposition may make that unnecessary. Do you accept, General, that once you are appointed by the Provincial Commissioner as the CJOC in terms of standing order, that the provisions of the standing order then regulate your conduct?
Uyayivuma into kokuba xa iCommissioner iye yakubeka njenge-CJOC is indlela okufanele usebenze ngayo iphathwa ile standing order.
Correct, Chairperson.
Ewe kunjani.
Also, I need to comply with the policy on crowd management.
Fanele nisebenze ngendlela ebekiwe phaya ekulawulweni kwezihlwele umthetho ophathelene nelonto.
Now, General, if we can then go through
the... Chair, I'm not sure. The witness was about to explain or give his own understanding with reference to some paragraph.
I think, Mr. Pillay, we must give the General an opportunity to explain his understanding of the matter, because it's clearly important to know how he understood things and how he applied what he understood to be the law. So give us your understanding, but try to keep it as brief as you can.
Babuza uGeneral ukuba anikeze yena eyakhe incazelo ukuba uyiva kanjani lento.
Chairperson, my understanding, as is already being explained, is also contained in that paragraph 2, to say that in the case where a spontaneous has happened, you don't normally have the other party, the conveners are not there. But what is more important to me is that once the other party is not there, and it becomes very much problematic for the police to work, because according to the Regulation of Gatherings Act, compels that there should be two parties where there must be the planning and the other part, and that is my understanding. So when we're dealing with Standing Order 262, my understanding is that we have to deal also with the other party in terms of saying you had also an obligation in terms of the Regulation of Gatherings Act, and also the actions of the police to police these spontaneous as legal. It's also part of the Regulation of Gatherings Act, is also part of Standing Order 262. But my understanding, it will be that when coming to the compliance of Standing Order 262, it also has to be seen in the sense that were there any two parties or it was one party?
Uyikonta ngolo hlobo umhlekazo kokuba xa ujongana nezi zinto umahluko ukuthi kulena enye ehleliwe kuba khona amaqela amabini ababajongene nabo naba hlela lento apha ke kuwenzeka lento ngesacuphe khona kubakho iqela elilodwa elingazo kokuba ngobani abahamba phambili ingxaki iba lapho kodwa ke indlela ekufanele ulawulwe ngayo indlela efana na.
General, just following up on that explanation, may I ask you to turn to clause 6 of the standing order? You will see, General, that clause 6 envisages two distinct situations. A situation where an authorized member receives notice of a gathering, and that, I think, is one of the scenarios you were dealing with, General, when the convener follows the prescripts of the Regulation of Gatherings Act and gives notice of the gathering. But clause 1 also refers to instances where the member receives information regarding a gathering, which we would submit, General, encompasses a situation where the convener does not follow the prescripts of the Regulation of Gatherings Act. And that clause 6 would then apply to both scenarios.
uzawuvumelana nami ke xa ndithi apha ku-6 apho kukho ingxelo inotice ekufanele ikhutshwe ngaleyo ntlanganiso. Ilunga xa lifumana eso saziso kufanele lilandele izinto ezimbini xa kwenzeka ena bese kwenzeka lena enye.
Do you agree with that, General?
I still want to understand the question, whether to comment or to agree with what has been written here.
Andazi ukuba ubuza ubani ndinikeze inkcazelo noma mhlawumbe ndivumelana nayo nale nto ebhale apha undibuza loo nto.
The question, General, is do you agree that Clause 6 encompasses both the scenarios you refer to and therefore would apply to both scenarios?
Umbuzo kokuba xa uyijongile ithetha ngazo zombini le ihleliwe nalingahlelwanga.
And the chairperson, with respect, has made a ruling on this issue about whether a witness agrees or not at page 2035 of the prescript of the transcript. You said, the chairperson said whether the witness agrees or not is beside the point. In fact, I can read directly what the chairperson says. You'll be able to ask a witness directly involved in the matter about these issues, but just putting the argument to the bishop and saying, what's your comment on this, in the hope that he will agree, with respect, isn't going to help us at all to answer the questions that we've been asked to answer. So he's putting a legal proposition to the witness and asking him to agree is not going to help the commission at all.
I think you're right, Mr. Ngugwana, but it's against the background of, she doesn't have to repeat the words every time, of his understanding of the matter. So perhaps you can reformulate the question and avoid the objection.
Mhlekazi uNgalwana uthi ke kwenziwa isigqibo ngento enjengalena sibekwa nguchairman okokuba xa ayinakusinceda nganto into enjengalo kuba uyavumelana nami kanani uvumelana nami na.
Chair, just to respond very briefly to the objection, I think what we're dealing with here is a different species of legal prescript. This is a document that the witness accepts governed his conduct on the day, and we've indicated at the start of this cross-examination that the purpose is not only to get to test the witness's understanding of what he was entitled and supposed to do, but also to give the witness the benefit of understanding the submissions which we will make at the end on whether or not the prescripts were complied with or not.
Yendenza le ngxelo kokuba injongo yami yokubuza le mbuzo lena ngokubona kokuba uyivisisa ngoluphi uhlobo ugeneral le nkcazelo ephethwe apha ngoba umsebenzi labenike wona uwela ngaphansi kwalomthetho obekiwe nokuthi wasebenza ngokomthetho na walandelisa yonke into ebekiwe.
Yes, Chairperson, I do agree, and in agreeing in terms of what has also been written, I'll also like that maybe we should check the authorized officers and so on. But the understanding, yes, I do agree.
I don't want to unduly interfere, but would this not perhaps help to shorten matters? The position is you have three situations. The first case is where there's a gathering and you've been told by the convener in advance that various things happen. The second case is there's a gathering. You haven't been told by the convener in advance of the gathering, but you do receive information. The police concerned, the authorized member under the Act, he receives notice that a gathering is going to take place, not from the convener, but from someone else. And that information can either come from another member of the police service or from an outsider. As far as I can see from 6, it tells you what the authorized member must do if he receives information regarding a gathering. If he gets it from the convener, he must do what the first part says. If he receives from another member of the force, he gets service, I beg your pardon. He must do what the second box says, and if he's contacted by the responsible officer, then he's got to do what the third box says. It doesn't deal with the situation where the two other situations. The one is where he receives information not from someone else in the service or from the responsible officer, but from some outsider. That's the first thing is not dealt with clearly. And the second thing not dealt with is where he doesn't receive information from anybody at all. he suddenly discovers that the gathering has taken place. Now, but I take it that it's generally accepted, surely, that even if a gathering takes place and the police don't know about it till it happens, they still must act so far as they can under the standing order. Would you accept that? Is that the practice and your understanding?
Yes, Chairperson, but what exactly Chairperson has explained now, that was not in here, which I wanted it should also be on record.
Put it on record to your satisfaction.
I am extremely happy, Chairperson.
Mr. Lack, perhaps you can now proceed with some of the undergrowth have been removed.
I'm indebted, Chair. If we can then go to the factual matter, General Mpembe, and I'm going to put to you that what is encompassed in Clause 6 of Standing Order 262 was short-circuited in relation to the incident of the 13th because of the presence of the Provincial Commissioner and her immediate appointment of you as the CJOC on the day.
Uthi ke ngesehlakalo somhla ka13 kwenzeka okokuba iprovincial commissioner yabakho apho kwathi xa kwenzeka lento noma yenzeka ngesaqupho obese kubeka wena ke njengo-CJOC.
Chairperson, I need to understand what is short-circuited and in relation to the standing order. Maybe we...
Xa ungandichazela nje okokuba uchaza ntoni xa uthi short-circuited.
What I'm putting to you, General, is that in relation to the incident of the 13th, the information was not given to the responsible person appointed under the Standing Order and under the Regulations of Gathering Act. The information was given directly to the Provincial Commissioner, who acted immediately on that information by appointing you as the CJOC under the Standing Order.
Into endichazayo pha kokuba noma kwakungekho ngxelo yayibekiwe kodwa ke yafunyanwa ngu-Provincial Commissioner owabesenza ke kokuba makubekwe wena njenge-CJOC ozawukongamela eso sehlakalo.
So, Chair, may I understand, is my learned friend saying there was no authorized person appointed? For purposes of my note,
Me, you're asking her, because you're asking me, you're asking the wrong person.
I have to ask through you, Chair, if you don't mind.
Chair, I would submit that the representatives of SABC would know whether an authorized person was appointed or not. That was not my contention. I put to the witness that due to the Provincial Commissioner's presence on the day, that the information was received via the CCTV. She saw it and immediately appointed him as CJOC in terms of Clause 8 of Standing Order 262.
Into endiyibeka yileyo kokuba uProvincial Commissioner kwenzeka okokuba bekhona apho yavela lento ivela kwi-CCTV camera wabesethi ngelo xesha wabeka uGeneral okokuba makube nguye ongamele eso sehlakalo.
Chairperson, I would agree in terms of short-circuited, but in terms of an authorized officer in that area, I was not the authorized member.
Mandithi ndiyavumelana njengoba usisho ngaphandle kokuthi ke kwakundim lo owayefanele ukuba afumane leyo ngxelo.
I would agree as far as the appointment is concerned, but not agreeing on the responsibility with regard to as an authorized member, because the authorized member of that area, it's Captain Governor who has been appointed in writing by the Provincial Commissioner.
Umuntu bebekiwe ke authorized officer apho Captain Governor owabekwa ngokubhaliweyo uProvincial Commissioner.
And myself as the CJOC for the operation.
Kwabe sekubekwa ke mina kokuba dijongane naloo nto eyenzeka ngelo xesha njenge-CJOC.
General, I will put it to you that it is not relevant whether or not the authorized member performed the actions that he ought to have performed under Standing Order 262 or not, because ultimately you as CJOC are responsible for all actions taken and all actions that ought to have been taken under the Standing Order.
Ake wayekhona lubekiwe kodwa ke wena ngokubekwa njenge-CJOC kwaba nguwe ongamele yonke ke olu xanduva lwakulabinikeza kuwe.
Chair, with respect, the legal foundation that is being put is not correct in terms of 262 itself. 262 gives functions to the authorized member, our learned friend cannot say it's not relevant at all.
Akakwazi ugqama okokuba athike le nto ephathelene ngoba standing order 262 unikeza amandla kulowo otyunjwe okokuba enze lo msebenzi.
What do you say about that?
Chair, if I may refer, and it's a pity that I didn't get the answer from the witness, which would have been preferable. If I could refer my learned friend and maybe the witness by implication to clause 8.2 of the standing order.
Chairperson, if I have to answer that question, is that the CJOC, in my understanding, is that you are responsible for all actions for the operation. And normally this is happening before the operation. That is my understanding.
Ndiva mna ichaza apho kokuba ukubekwa kwami njengesijoki indinikeza amandla yokujongana naleyo sehlakalo senzeka ngelo xesha hayi izinto ezenzeke phambi kokuba ibekho loo nto endijunjelayo.
So, General, on your understanding, when does the operation commence?
Xa uthetha ngokwesehlakalo siqala nini uthi inkcazelo yakho uba isehlakalo siqala xa kwenzeka ntoni?
Chairperson, when, in my understanding, in that case of on the 13th, it's already when the people were there. Then the operation starts there. But if maybe earlier on that day, I have received the information that these are the people that I could have find out from Captain Govender whether was there any notice or whether he heard about it. But it was to me when I was told an operation had to start, as I have already given them my testimony.
Ngokuya kwami ngemna isehlakalo esisaqala sange-13 ngeli xesha ndibona uba naba bantu sebekhona apha xa bendifumene ingxelo phambi koko bendizawuya kulo bephethe ugovenda ndiyobuza ukuba uyifumene na isaziso sale nto yenzeka phaya.
So on your evidence, General, the operation commenced when you were appointed as CJOC and when you were requested, instructed by General Mpembe to attend to the people who were marching back from Korea Mine.
Wakho nje uthi ke isehlakalo esisiqalise ngeli xesha uGeneral Mpembe ekuxelela okokuba kuzawuba nguwe ophethe ngoku xa isisenzeka le nto.
Chairperson, I know that in my evidence in chief, this was discussed extensively, but there were questions that Advocate Ngalwana asked me, and the chairperson also made me to understand. Maybe if I can go to my transcript of exactly what I've said.
Ndiyakhumbula ibuzo le mbuzo ibuza ngumhlekazi uNgalwana no-chairperson endibuza ngayo le nto xa ndinganikwa nje ithuba lokuba ndiye ndikwi-transcript ndiyojonga uba yayibuzwa ndaphendula ndathi.
General, with the greatest of respect, it's a straightforward question. Did the operation commence when you were appointed as CJOC and you were instructed by General Mpembe to attend to the people who were returning from Korea Mine?
Nguthi ulula lo mbuzo General ngokuya kwakho isehlakalo esisiqale ngelo xesha uGeneral Mpembe esithi kuwe nguwe osuphethe ngoku iya pha iyojonga uba kwenzeka ntoni.
I need just to check whether it was, because the question was it before or after? But in the answer it will be when I was appointed to attend.
Impendulo izawuthi ngeli xesha ndicela okokuba mandingenele.
General, Standing Order, Clause 7 of Standing Order 262 requires there to be a threat assessment once information has been received of a gathering.
Umhlathi wesi ngephaya uthi ke kufanele kubekho ulwazi olufunyanwayo kokuba ubungozi balento bungakanani phambi kokuba kwenziwe noma intoni.
In her evidence, General Piecha described this process, General, as an environmental scan, the scan of the threat assessment. Now, on my understanding of the evidence, and that's the documentary and the oral evidence before this commission, General, is that there is no evidence that there was a threat assessment conducted before you descended on the marchers who were returning from Korea Mine.
Ngokuva kwami ke akuzange kube khona lento yokokuba ke kwenze uhlolo kokuba ubungozi baletho bungakanani phambi kokuba unikezwe umyalelo kokuba hamba uyojongana nabo ababantu bavela eKareni.
Chairperson, the environmental, what the threat assessment here has to do with whether it was in accordance to the crowd management policy. It will be level 1 when it's normally handled by the station. That's my understanding. And then level 2, it's when a station is being told, but POP is handling it, but POP is on standby. Level 3, then it's the most level that is senior. And in my understanding is that when I arrived there on the scene, and with what has already happened, then that we equated it to level 3 and more.
Ezi zinto ke ziye zinikeze amahlelo kokuba xa ikwazi ukuba ijongwe nje si-station eyo siyibiza ngoba ikwi-level 1. Xa ithi ukuphakama ukuba ingozi iba ku-level 2. Xa ndifika phaya emva kokuba zonke zezinto ezenzekile sayibeka le kwihlelo lesithathu.
But Chairperson, I need to explain this because there was normally this threat assessment is done by crime intelligence, who will say, because of this and that, that will be equated to a level 2 or level 3.
Manditsho kokuba lo ngumsebenzi we-crime intelligence ukuba ngabo abahlola ubungozi balento kube ngaba basixela ukuba ikweliphi izinga.
Chairperson, in terms of my testimony, before I go there, that hasn't have happened because of the spontaneous of it.
May I ask you this? Who was the provincial head operational response services in the Northwest Province in August last year?
Kuzokuba kube kungubani provincial head operations phaya in Northwest ngelo xesha?
Brigadier Fritz.
Brigadier
And
Fritz.
when there's reference in 7.1 to the area commissioner or member designated by him or her of a proposed gathering, that's a reference, I take it, to the authorized person, is it? Who was the area commissioner?
Buzokuba ngelo xesha area commissioner yalendawo kwakungubani?
Or person designated by the area commissioner
Ikanene obekwe
for that
nguye.
area? Was that governor?
Oh, I'm sorry, Chairperson. I thought that the interpret. Chairperson, in that case, if I take a little bit back, it will be the area commissioner will be replaced by cluster commander, and the cluster commander was on leave, who is Major General Asaning. The acting one was Brigadier Sebuluki. Now, in that case, a member designated by this acting area commissioner would be Captain Governor. But because Captain Governor, he is not a POP member, that will be either at the level of the cluster commander, it could have been Lieutenant Colonel Merafe.
Iyayichaza ke lento kokuba umuntu bezojunjwa apho kubaphathe bezokuba ugovernor kodwa ngoba governor kungekho kungelunga le POP ubeze bese enikezelwa ku Merafe.
General, when you say when I arrived on the scene we equated it to level 3 or more, who do you include in we?
usithi sayijonga njengo level 3 uthetha wena nabani?
Chairperson, when I say we, I include the crime intelligence as it is its function actually to do the threat assessment with what happened.
Nditsho naba be-crime intelligence.
Crime intelligence, yes, Chairperson.
Banabo bekumsebenzi wabo kokuba benze olo hlobo.
But I did also go on to say on that day that threat assessment wasn't done because it was a spontaneous whereby I had to attend to it. But in terms of what has already happened, one or even we could have equated it, or we take it as level 3 and more.
Njengoba nditshilo kokuba le nto yenzeke ngesacuphe azange kube khona okokuba ihlolwe ngaba kodwa ke njengoba kwizinto esazenzekile ngaphambilini yiko nje sayijonga into ugrogriso oluphaya kwinqanaba lesithathu.
General, I just want to step away from the outcome of a threat assessment process. In other words, as to whether it was a level 1, level 2, level 3. And I want us to focus on the process itself. Now, we know from clause 7.1 that the threat assessment has to be conducted at JOCOM. Is that correct?
Andithi kunjalo kokuba lento oluhlolo kufanele lenziwe kwi-JOCOM.
Normally is presented to the JOCOM by the crime intelligence or by different intelligence agencies together and presented to the JOCOM. That is in a normal crowd management.
Ngesicelo xa kukho ulawulo lwezihlelo iziswa kwi-JOCOM ngabe crime intelligence kanene abanye ababambisene nabo kwezi zobunhlolo.
And once you're appointed as CJOC, you're also the head of JOCOM.
Xa ubekwe njenge-CJOC kuba nguwe intloko eyongamele i-JOCOM.
Correct, Chairperson.
Kunjalo.
Now, we know from clause 7.2 of the standing order that the process of assessment is an involved one. General, it involves an evaluation of a number of different factors. Do you agree?
Njengoba ichazwa apha ku-7.2 kokuba into enomsebenzi omninzi lona into enzulu ethayile kujongwe kabanzi ngayo.
Correct, Chairperson.
Ndivumelana nawe.
Now, as I understand your evidence today, General, you're quite clear that in your presence, there was never any threat assessment evaluation done.
Uthi njengoba ke ube wawukhona apho azange kuba khona uhlolo njengolo lwenziwayo.
Chairperson, I earlier said that because of the spontaneous event of it, and by that time, myself, as I was coming on leave, when I established a JOCOM was established thereafter. But there was a JOC which was established on Saturday.
I-JOC yayikhona kodwa ke JOCOM yafika yenziwa xa ndifika apho ngesizathu sokokuba lento yenzeka ngesacuphe ndiye ndachazwa kokuba azange kubekho uphando olwenziwayo lobungozi bale meko.
General, I'm sorry, I'm not clear on when the JOCOM was established on the 13th. You were asked to come back from leave. In relation to your arriving at the railway line, when was the JOCOM established?
Andithi wacela ukuba uye phaya ku-railway line ndibuza ngokuba i-JOCOM yabunjwa nini ke apho.
It was after the incident.
Emva kokuba kwenzeka isehlakalo.
Is that right, Major General? If you look at the definition of JOCOM in paragraph 2K of the standing order, it seems to envisage that there is a standing body, which is the JOCOM. Because it says JOCOM means the Joint Operational Coordinating Committee. It's an integrated operational body. It goes on about that. And then it says it meets weekly and only deals with planned activities and so on. So is there normally a standing body, a JOCOM, that exists to deal with all notified gatherings? Yes. and deals with planned activities and so forth as they are reported. So if there was a standing JOCOM already in Marikana, which was supposed to meet every week and deal with planned activities, then you don't set up a JOCOM, you've got one. And then, if that's correct, and then what then happens, of course, is that when there is a particular gathering which is likely to cause trouble, you normally have a threat assessment about it, decide which level it fits in, and then various other things happen. And if it's clear there's going to be operation, quite a complicated operation, that a CJOC is appointed, and various other things follow from that. Is that more or less the way it works? Or am I understanding it wrongly?
Injalo lento njengoba ndichaza general kokuba xa ujonga ku2K kufanele kubekho iJOCOM ehlala ikhona apha ehlanganise aba bantu kuthi ke xa kuvela into enjengaleyo bese bathatha izinyathelo ezifanele.
Chairperson, your understanding is correct, except that is not existing always.
Ewe kunjalo mhlakazi into efanele ibe khona kodwa ayibi khona ngawo wonke amaxesha.
It's assembled for a certain operation, or a threat assessment is normally it's a continuous process of crime intelligence in conjunction with the other agencies like SSA.
Yes.
Ngokuya kwe-crime intelligence eyenza uphando ngawo onke amaxesha kube ngiyo eveza kokuba kukho into enjengalena ezokwenzeka bese kudinganiswa aba.
What para 9 appears to tell us is that once the CJOC's been appointed, he or she's got various things to do, and one of the things that he must do is activate a JOC. That we get from 923. Activate a JOC and appoint an operations officer. The CJOC is appointed by the divisional, provincial, or area commissioner. In your case, you were appointed by the provincial commissioner on the 13th. Is that right?
Correct, Chairperson.
And you then had to. You were then automatically an overall commander of the specific operation. There'd been other people dealing with the matter before that. Marafi and who was the other one?
Captain Governor.
Yeah. They'd been dealing with the situation up to then, but it got more serious on the Monday. It got serious on the Sunday actually, but it got particularly serious on the Monday. And you were then appointed CJOC. And you had various tasks to perform inter alia. You had to activate a JOC, and you had to appoint an operations officer. Is that right?
Correct, Chairperson.
Did you activate the JOC?
Yes, correct, Chairperson.
And did you appoint then Carlitz as the operations officer? Is that correct?
Kwabekwa uKarlitz njengomuntu ophethe phaya kuyona emva kokuba imeko yamamaqongo kusuka ngale mina efike ngayo phaya.
But there was something like of a crisis on the go because there were several hundred people wandering around near the railway line with dangerous weapons. So you decided to leave your newly appointed operations officer behind because he couldn't speak the language, and you went off to deal with the situation. Is that what happened?
Correct, Chairperson, up to so far. I just wanted to also to include that the JOC was actually established on Saturday on the arrival of Brigadier Fritz. I only take it and expand it when I realize on the 13th. I only wanted to include that one.
Uthi njalo lento mhlakazi njengoba ubeka nje uthi umhlali ngaphambili wafika kukho indoda eyayiphethe apho wasu uxa uthunjwe bese umshiya apho usiya wena phaya ngoba yona ingakwazi ukuthetha intetho yabantu. Uthi ugeneral ngaphandle ukuthi ndongeza nje ukuba iJOC yasikhona ndiye ndayongeza xa ndibona
Sorry, but I took you a bit off your
maqongo kanjani.
Predetermined course, but I take it you can get back to it without much trouble.
I can, and I'm indebted to the chair.
I'm sorry, Chairman. I just wanted to add also to say, at that time when the JOC was established, and the station commander was there, as well as the acting cluster commander by that time.
mandisho kokuba xa kubunjwa le JOC ke station commander ne acting wayekhona area commander.
Just to get back to the thrust of this line of questioning, General, is that from the time that you were appointed as CJOC and became chair of JOCOM, there was no threat assessment done?
andisho kokuba ngelixesha ubekwa okokuba ube nguwe umhlali ngaphambili wesijoko lena bekungakwenzanga phando lokuhlola ubungozi bemeko ngelo xesha.
Chairperson, I just wanted the clarity whether before the incident or after the incident.
Usho ngoku emva kwesehlakalo noma phambi kwaso.
Sorry, you weren't the chair, you appointed General. I take it you would have been the chair, except for the fact you appointed General Allendale to be the chair because you had a lot of other things to do apart from just sitting in the chair at the JOCOM. Is that right?
Correct, Chairperson.
Now what incident are you talking about? There was a series of incidents which started in the previous week, but there'd been serious incidents on the 12th when the security guards were killed. That evening, other employees who were reporting for work were killed as well, presumably in an attempt to enforce an unprotected strike. And then on the Monday, there was this group of people, I think 200 approximately, people marching across the countryside with dangerous weapons. That was the first situation. Is that the incident that's being talked about, or do you mean some other incident?
Chair, if I may just indicate that all of these questions are based on the gathering, which we identified as the 200 people marching from Korea Mine.
Umbuzo lo ndibuza nteta ngesisihlele sabantu ababengamakhulu amabili babe phaya ngase railway bevela eKorea Mine.
Yes, sorry, I didn't see that your light had come on.
Thank you, Chair. Just for the record again, name is Tandon Zonkota on behalf of NUM. Chair, I hold no brief for subs. And maybe I should have made this observation much earlier, but I thought I should just let Ms. Pillay to continue with her cross-examination, and perhaps it may not be necessary. Chair, as I understood the rules adopted the other day, the evidence leaders would be permitted to cross-examine chiefly for the purposes of putting a version of those that are not before the Commission, and in particular the injured and arrested and perhaps the families as well. But up until now, Chair, a new line of cross-examination is being put to the witness. So I thought perhaps I should just find out from the...
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but sorry,
if I could just finish as well. Yes, thank you, Chair. More so this witness in particular, bearing in mind that, you know, the evidence leaders through Mr. Madlanga, whilst he was still with us, had sufficient opportunity to cross-examine the witness, and he was cross-examined at length by the evidence leaders. So it's almost like now, you know, having a second bite at the cherry, so to speak, Chair. It's really not an observation. I'm just placing. It's not an objection. I'm just placing an observation.
Finish what you want to say. I want to comment on what you said in a moment. Because I think you've.
Well, I'm done, Chair. That's all I wanted to.
The position is as follows, as I explained at the beginning. When Mr. Madlanga cross-examined, he cross-examined on the basis that Mr. Mpembe was going to follow, and Mr. Mpembe was going to put up certain contentions on behalf of his clients, the arrested and injured miners. We just call them the strikers for present purpose. And it was clear from a line he'd taken earlier that there were certain contentions he was going to advance on behalf of his clients, which Mr. Madlanga didn't deal with because he thought Mr. Mpembe was going to. Now that Mr. Mpembe is no longer with us, we altered the rules to provide that obviously we couldn't provide for the evidence leaders to represent the miners, but we did provide that they should present the version of the miners so that we would not, at the end of the day, come up with a one-sided report. Now, the version of the miners doesn't only include factual averments, but obviously involves other aspects that they would wish to put before us that they would regard as relevant. Now, I'm still not quite sure where Ms. Pillay goes, but I must assume that she's gone into this very carefully, and she is following a line which she understands the miners would wish to have put before us so that we can give a full and complete report dealing with various facets to it. So it's not really a second bite at the cherry. In a sense, literally I suppose it is, but it isn't really a second bite at the cherry because the evidence leaders are now performing a function that they weren't called upon to perform when Mr. Madlanga cross-examined, but which has become necessary because of the departure of the representatives of the miners. As I've said, she's not representing the miners, but she is doing a duty which evidence leaders must do to assist the Commission to deal with the matter as comprehensively as it can by presenting the version of the miners. And that's what she's doing. Where exactly we're going to go, it's not quite clear to me at the moment, but as you know, sometimes a cross-examiner likes to make that point become clear when all the necessary boxes have been ticked and the witnesses have made the necessary concessions. So I think we must let her carry on for the moment and not come with allegations of second bites at cherry. If the cross-examination deals with matters that are irrelevant or deals with matters that have been repetitive, been dealt with before, that's a legitimate ground. She's already undertaken at the very commencement to try to avoid repetition as much as possible. So let's let her carry on for the time being.
Ingxelo bekade phambi kwe-commission umhlekazi Songothi beveza apha ingxaki anayo kokuba ababe evidently babuza umhlekazi lona imibuzo emininzi xa kubuza umhlekazi oseyijaji ngokumhlekazi uMadlanga. Uthi ngoku umangala ukuba yintoni ngokuba sebabuza imibuzo eminingi kanjena ngo kuye kwavunyelana ngokuba izinto ezinjengalezi azinakwenzeka ukuphinda-phinde imibuzo bemchazela kumgcini sihlalo okokuba ubuza le mibuzo lena ngoba banikwe uxanduva lokuba bakwazi ukuveza ingxelo zamanye amaqela njengalawa angekho omhlekazi uMpofu abamele abantu abonzakala nababanjwa mhlawumbe uzama ukuveza lo.
Let me also intervene and make another observation. I take it, General, not an observation, but a question. I take it there would be situations where you can make the threat assessment in a flash. If you have a gathering of people walking down the street, clanking cutlasses and pangas and assegais together, you don't require to be a rocket scientist to be able to determine in a split second that you're dealing with a level 3 threat. Would that be right?
Correct, Chairperson.
Is that what happened here on the 13th?
Ukujonga okokuba ikwilephi inqanaba uhorizolthize ungalibona ngexesha elithile xa ubona abantu begqitha apha esitradini babethanisa izixhobo inqula nemikhonto uyakwazi ukubona okokuba le nto isezingeni lesithathu.
The hemorrhage is going to improve my question before the witness answers.
Uza kuyibuza ngendlela engcono umama hemorrhage.
When you say you equated it to a level 3, the question I'd like to ask is, by what process did you arrive at that conclusion?
Buza okokuba uthi wayibona yena inqanaba lesithathu wayibona ngendlela enjani?
Chairperson, may I steal your words?
Mandisebenzise ndibe amazwi kamhlekazi. Ndikunika elo gunya General.
Anyway, as a Major General of the Police, you wouldn't do something like commit a theft. No, you can carry on if you like.
Chairperson, it is in that line when you say you need not to be a record scientist. It's when I arrive there to realize that this is level 3 and more. And is also, I also stated in my statement in WG12 that is then that I realized that I'm not dealing with an ordinary crowd management. There is one paragraph here in my statement that specifies exactly what I'm saying now.
Kukho apha kwi-statement sami apho ndichaza khona ukuba ekufikeni kwamka apho ndibona okokuba imeko njani ndakwazi ukubona nangelo xesha okokuba le nto isenqanabeni lesithathu nangaphezulu ngobungozi.
General, I'm going to put it to you that what clause 7.2 of Standing Order 262 requires is a more qualitative assessment than you looking at the miners and deciding you don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand that they're dangerous. If you look at clause 7.2, it sets out a number of factors which needs to be taken into account and carefully considered before an appropriate course of action is decided on.
Amaphile ibeka ngolo hlobo kokuba awukwazi ukuthi nje ngokujonga wenze isigqibo sokokuba uhoviso lukweliphi inqanaba apha kukho izinto ezithize kufanele uzilandele ukuze kufike esigqibeni esinjengeso.
Yes, Chairperson, I do agree, and on the 13th this is not operationally it's not operationally easy or compatible that you need to sit. The ICC, in this case, it will be the Intelligence Coordinating Committee. They need to check in terms of what 7.2 has to do, and that's why on that day I followed that process when I arrived on the scene, and that was also one of my reasons to go there.
Enye izizathu eyenza ukuba ndiye apho yiyo le nto uyibuzayo okokuba ndisexa ndifika apho ndabona ukuba akuyonto elula le.
I see there's an etc. at the end of 7.2. Now, what had happened on this occasion was on the Saturday, there had apparently been a group of 2,000 people. It was 2,000 people. Was it 200 or 2,000? 200 people, I mustn't exaggerate. 200 people with, not disputed in evidence before us, some of them armed with dangerous weapons, who went to the NUM office and then there was trouble that we've heard extensively in the evidence. The following day, the Monday, so Sunday, 2 security guards were killed, and during the day, and 2 other people who were reporting for work were killed that night. Property was damaged. The Monday, you have a group of 200 people with dangerous weapons who go to the Korea mine. Now, those facts in themselves, would they be enough to raise the matter to level 3, or was there any chance that extra information might reduce it to level 1 or level 2?
Uza ngolo hlobo umhlekazi okokuba le nto iqale ngomgqibelo xa kuthi abantu abangamakhulu amabili besuka beya phaya kwi-offices zenam apho kwasuka khona kwaba khona inxuse. Kwathi ngecawe kwabulawa kwasweleka i-security ezimbini nabanye abantu babulawa ebusuku besiya emsebenzini. Ngomsombuluko naba abantu bangamakhulu amabili bedibene phaya baphethe izixhobo. Kwakho esinye isidingo sokokuba kujongisise ezinye izinto ngaphambi kokuba kufikele kwisigqibo sokuba ikweliphi inqanaba lento.
No, Chairperson, with those incidences, there were no chance that it could either go to level 1 or 2.
Kwakungekho sizathu esingasenza ukuba sijonge okokuba ikwinqanaba eliphansi kuneli esenza isigqibo kulo.
General, did you know for sure that the 200 people who were returning from Korea mine were the same people that went to the NUM offices the day before, on the 11th?
Ubona lona ulwazi lokuba ababantu ngaphandle kokugabaza le 200 yayihamba phaya ngase-railway yibo le 200 yayiyephi kwi-office kweNUM?
On Saturday I was still on leave.
Ndandiselivini umgqibelo.
If we can then turn, General, to clause 8.2 of the standing order.
Asijonga phaya ku-82 ye-standing order inkcazelo yakhona.
And I just wanted to test your understanding, General. Do you accept that once you are appointed as CJOC, that you are fully responsible for ensuring compliance with the standing order?
Chair, Mr. Shozi has already dealt with this issue.
Uthi umhlekazi ngalani sayichazile nje loo nto.
Take it as unlikely the answer is going to be no, but instead of having a long argument with the question should be asked, I take it the answer is yes.
Apho generally uvumelana naye kokuba uyayamkela into yokuba xa ubekwe njengesijoko nguwe usophethe yonke into uxanduva nkulu kuwe.
It is correct, Chairperson, with an addition to say that with the assistance of other officers in terms of the JOC structure. That's what I said to Advocate Matlang.
Help you, but ultimately what happens, all actions are actions for which you are to be held responsible. Even though obviously you couldn't do everything yourself, you had to be assisted by other people. But standing order makes it clear, all actions taken, you're responsible for them.
manditsho kokuba standing orders beka ngolo hlobo noma uthi kukho aba bancedisana nawe kwezinye iintetho kodwa kuthiwa apha nguwe
provided the people are under your command. And to talk about, just for a moment, about what happened on the 13th, if someone took it into his head to fire a tear gas canister that you hadn't ordered, or someone else took it in his head to order a tear gas canister to be fired which you hadn't authorized, and there's a major problem as a result of that, that sparks what happened. That's something you can't be held responsible for, because that wasn't anything that you ordered or authorized. Is that right?
Mandithi ke imiyalelo yayikhutshwa ngothatha yonke into kodwa ke xa kubekho umuntu obezokwenza into apha zenzele nje into engavelanga kuwe apho bowungakwazi ukuba uthathe kokuba kuthathe kokuba into ekufanele ijongiswe kuwe leyo.
It is correct, Chairperson, with through all out actions until on the 16th. That if is the understanding, I will agree, Chairperson.
Usitsho nje mhlekazi kusuka apho kude kuyofika pha egqibeleni nge-16.
It's nearly 1 o'clock. When you reach a suitable stage, would you let me know, and we'll take the adjournment. I'm not suggesting we should adjourn now. You must tell us when you think it's appropriate for your cross-examination.
Chair, it is convenient to adjourn now.
We'll take the lunch adjournment
sithathe ixesha
until quarter to
lunch